but suddenly Black is ganging up 3 times on this Lone Ranger. And he does play this.
That's it. Wow.
I thought that advancing the knight first, kicking the queen back, and then playing c3 would mean that at least now the pawn is defended twice, only attacked twice. Everything kind of holds together for white. But playing this now, it's safety first chess, but you are losing the pawn. And remember, you're a pawn up. Why give that material back?
I'm going to be honest, when I suggested c3, I didn't even realize that the a4 pawn will be hanging after this trade. But Hikaru has calculated further. He decides to sidestep with the rook, but the eval bar does not approve.
His one advantage was the extra pawn, and he still hasn't got castled. OK, he's one move away from that, but this is it's a very risky way to play. I mean, maybe Black moved the queen now to try and stop that, but that pawn has gone. So with the pawn not being there anymore, then I would assume Magnus is very happy with those last couple of moves, and the evaluation bar also agreeing that Magnus is doing pretty well here.
Can we change our picks now, David? I think I might pick Black now.
Yeah, I'll stick to my guns, but not happily here. I really think that this is a key moment. If white gets time to castle, anything could still happen. But if Magnus does play this key move, queen to b5, highlighted by you there, Simon, then Hikaru's position does start to creak.
Wow. A natural-looking move, c3, but it seemed that was the big mistake, which gives the pawn back to Magnus Carlsen. And right now, a big moment. Will he find this key move, as Simon is pointing out? A key position in our other matchup as well. Let's quickly jump over to Maxim Vachier-Lagrave against Alireza Firouzja. We did predict that this will be the matchup with all the fireworks. Game 1 was exactly that, and Game 2 continues to be that. Look at that last move, putting that bishop in front of that h-pawn, but you dare not take it. There's a checkmate on h7.
That's such a cool move. It's like dangling candy in front of a child's eyes. That's so mean. Bishop g5, take me, take me. But queen to h7 would then be checkmate. So this bishop is poisoned. Simon, looks like an initiative for white.
Yeah, very interesting idea there. And I mean, these guys, they just see so many tactics. You know, they're always spotting these moves a mile off, and it's kind of this position is to do with Black's better pawn structure. Black has a better pawn structure, but white has a bit of an attack. The white queen near Black's king. The white bishops are sort of hovering over there as well, and with the rooks coming to the centre of the board, it's a bit dangerous for Black. So how does Black deal with this? And David, you've also pointed out another potential threat there. The initiative with white, and Alireza's got to be, he's the one with more danger, certainly, in this position at the moment.
Yeah, let's just point that out. Let's put a checkmate on the board if we see one. But pawn takes bishop would allow queen to h7, and the king would be trapped. So really flashy move, an effective move, huge threat. I think the black queen has to sidestep. Nothing else to be done here. The one move you don't want to play, for example, is to block the e-file. Now you do stop the bishop coming in, but white might now be able to sacrifice on this square. Bishop takes pawn, and this is a very typical type of sacrifice. Checkmate now incoming on h7. So you have to be really, really careful. The tightrope here has to be walked by Firouzja. I think you have to play queen to c6, queen to c7, and there we go. The queen has to move. Only way to keep the game going.
Good call there, David. Just sidesteps with the queen, gets out of that threat. And what you really want with black here is to try to trade off the rooks on the board. Take that bishop out. You pointed out e6 is not a square you want to put it to. You don't want to disconnect your queen from the kingside defense. But bishop d7, rook e8. I want to neutralize the white rooks once they double up on the e-line. And that last move by Maxim, bishop g5, was a flashy one. But if you just sidestep all these tricks and traps in the position, it doesn't really get white anything.
No, if black can exchange pieces off, then he's probably going to win the ending because he's got the better pawn structure. So white now bringing that last piece in. And I think we're going to see right there, Tanya, just moving the bishop, trying to get the rooks off the board. It looks very logical way for black to play. And how can white keep the initiative alive? It's a bit like the last game, though, which seemed very dangerous for one of the players. But the evaluation bar just said it was equal all along. And in this position, well, I don't know. I mean, now white's got to try and find something, but there's nothing obvious that I can see here. He's got his pieces to the best squares. So how does he improve this position? Yeah. Black's defending everything. So it's not easy to suggest a move at all.
Yeah, we said it before the show. You mentioned it, Simon. These two players, their styles, they're both itching to attack. They want to be on the front foot, but they're also great defenders. And Firouzja, I just love what he's done. The black queen on the 6th rank, just acting as a guardian from afar, and no way through for white. Yeah, as soon as you start retreating in chess in general, but especially in this position with that fractured queenside pawn structure, as soon as you start stepping back, taking negative decisions, things will turn. And Firouzja, he's set up the idea of a rook trade. Maybe at some point you just have to play it safe, have to try and trade off a couple of pieces. If you trade the right ones, you might be safe with white, but there we go. The retreating has begun. And Vachier-Lagrave took a bit of time. We're normally kind of accustomed to seeing him play instantly every turn, amassing huge time advantages against every opponent. But here he's down on the clock, maybe indicating that he's not happy with white's position.
I really like the way Alireza has handled the pressure, and it makes me wonder if Maxim's last move is actually directed towards not trading those rooks and perhaps planting that dark squared bishop on e5, getting the opportunity to block any trades along the e line. So bishop e5 are ideas not only to block the trade, but also some pressure on the g7 square at some right moment. So this one's still in balance. Let's take this opportunity to check in with Anish Giri, who did lose the first game against Jan Nepomniachtchi, playing catch-up there. David, is white down in exchange?
Whoa, white is down in exchange, but white's knight, the knight on e5, is forking both of black's rooks. It took me a while to adapt and to do a count here. White is down a rook for knight and pawn, but is going to win the material back. I think that's guaranteed. So it's just a matter of how to give back the material, which black rook is going to give up its life. And here we go. He saves this rook to take a pawn. I think the most natural move in the position. White will restore the material balance by taking black's rook on g6. I don't know why Giri is pausing. And then it's a case of rook and bishop versus rook and knight. Which one is superior? And Jovanka once taught me that rook and bishop are better than rook and knight, something that I never really thought about. But yeah, they tend to combine better. And black's bishop is nicely poised, nicely placed. Black's queenside pawns might start to run quite fast as well. And look at the clock.
Yeah, the clock is really not in Anish's favour again. I mean, often in these positions, well, it's just whose pawns are going to run up the board fastest. So I think you have to take the rook, right, at some point. And then you've got to try using your pawns as white. But it's not easy to get a passed pawn. And the bishop is a good defender and a good attacker. So valuation bar says it's even. But Jan's chances with the clock as well seem to be much greater.
It's the same narrative that we saw in game one on the clock. The 17th piece, as we've been calling it in the Champions Chess Star. Anish now under 20 seconds. And an endgame that's not easy to defend. You pointed out the combination of the rook and the bishop, especially in this position with that f2 pawn that is a bit tender. Black can start targeting it with rook f3. But the good news for white is that you can neutralize that bishop anytime with a check on d7 and trade on b6. This one, I think it's fair to say, if anyone has chances with that bishop on the board, the b4 pawn weak. Jan will try to push it. Let's use this opportunity to jump back to our big matchup. Hikaru Nakamura with the white pieces against Magnus Carlsen. Now both players under 3 minutes. And David, before we jump into this, will you do a quick action replay to see how we got here? Because it's been a complicated game from the start.
Yeah, we have a material imbalance right now. The clocks are ticking and the stakes are high, but let's jump in to show what happened. We left it here. Queen b5, the move we suggested, was indeed played, attacking this pawn twice. Hikaru's rook had to retreat to defend this vulnerable pawn, and suddenly some chaos. The black queen stepped back out of the range of the white knight. White retreated himself. Black tried to crack open the structure and found his rook trapped on a4. This was part of Magnus's plan, however. He took and gave up his rook. And this is the mess we're left with after queen to e3. I think we just see one more move. Black gave a check and retreated his bishop to e7. So material count, white has a rook for black bishop and pawn. And who do we think is better here? White's king still stranded, still cut off from castling. You can't castle through check here. Oof, to me, it's anyone's game. Without the evaluation bar, I would probably think that black was doing well, but... Oof,
yeah, I think the king's safety, again, it's been the same throughout the game, that black's king has always been safer than white's king, and white's got to get that king to the king side. It's going to take a couple of moves to do that. The two bishops, they've got lots of open diagonals they can move on, so they're looking very strong here as well. And the time situation, both of these players, they're the best players, aren't they, under, with no time. That's not really an issue, but you've still got to calculate carefully, and who's got the more danger here? Well, it has to be in this position, white, who's in more danger. Grabbing the pawn, though, and Magnus has got to show an idea. It is another pawn, very sharp game. If Hikaru loses this game, well, I can't see him coming back in the match. So he's just got to make sure he gets some kind of result out of this one now.
Yeah, he's calling the bluff here, Hikaru Nakamura. He's just taking all the material and saying, okay, you try and attack me, you try and checkmate me, I'm just going to kind of bank it. And, okay, Magnus takes the opportunity to play rook to b8. Looks very natural, a pin, but the evaluation bar reacts and says Hikaru now has a big advantage if he plays the most natural move in the position. If white's king just kind of vacates the first rank, like we've been hoping for, kind of asking for a long time, connect the white rooks. That's the reason castling is so strong in chess in general. You connect the rooks, and suddenly white's material advantage might start to count.
Yeah. I've got a question for you, Simon, here. The first move that came to my mind after seeing Magnus's rook b8 is queen to e5. I'm threatening a mate on g7 and a double attack with the rook on b8. What's going on after queen e5?
Yeah, I thought exactly the same. I mean, queen e5 creates a fork on the board. You attack the rook, you attack the pawn here. I'm assuming that black can throw in a check now. Maybe queen a5 is a way to cause the white king some trouble here. Where does the white king go? All of a sudden, if the white king goes to f2, then at the worst case, black's queen can slip in with a check or take the pawn. So there's a couple of very tempting options. So it's just this check on the side of the board that saves black in this position.
Yeah, it's really hanging by a thread for both sides. And, okay, king f2 instead was played, so keeping this one up his sleeve for later. Nice double attack spotted there, and definitely on both players' radars as well. I just don't see how Magnus keeps the initiative. Maybe he was banking on a move like bishop to c2, attacking this white rook, but this idea that you mentioned, Tanya, queen to c3 would now be a double attack, hitting the bishop and hitting this checkmate from afar. I think Magnus might have let it slip, and suddenly Hikaru, with all the extra material, and look at that bar react again. Queen to c4, wow. Another inaccurate move by the world number one.
And this is a great chance here, Hikaru. He's got to take this game now with such a big advantage. I mean, he hasn't got much time. He's got 47 seconds. Still incredibly complex. We can see the evaluation bar, but the players obviously are not sure who's doing what here. And what is white's move? What is the killer move here? There must be a good move for white in this position.
That's the big question. The one thing that I want to point out is that queen e5 is still not possible because of a check on c2, and I think this was the move that you were looking for, coming in with that rook onto a tempo, attacking that queen. And now that the c2 square is guarded, I was again looking at the idea of queen e5, but he falls back with the queen to d2 because the bishop on c2 is pinned. Do you just pin and win here?
I think you do. You pin and you win that black bishop. Suddenly the black bishop on c2 is immobilized. You cannot move it. The black queen would drop off, and you can take a pawn with check. White's c-pawn is up for grabs, but the white king, notice how it's shuffled across to safety, is going to park itself on g2, and all of the remaining white pieces are working. They're coordinated. Magnus gives a check. The white king does move. Could this check have been blocked by white's bishop as well, maybe? And Magnus gives up his queen.
Queen c3 now.
Yeah.
You still have bishop to f8.
Still have bishop to f8. I mean, this looks horrible. I mean, Hikaru's got the extra queen, but Magnus is trying to do that famous thing, which he does quite often now, get a blockade of somehow on the king side. But white has all the winning chances. The queen is very strong. And when you're playing against the queen, you need to get your pieces coordinating. And I don't think the black pieces are coordinating at all here. Queen c1 is going to be a move. There's many ways you can attack those bishops now. Maybe queen c1 is one of those moves. I suppose there's a check, though, in a2. He's just got to be accurate here. There is a check there. Is he still alive here?
He's still alive, but Magnus is really struggling to keep things together. Look at those black bishops. Now they're skewered against each other on the c-file. The valuation bar going up again. Maybe the best bet is to just give up the black rook here, take white's bishop off the board, and you try to defend with two bishops against the white queen, but I don't know about Magnus believing fortresses. I don't believe in that one.
Two bishops versus queen will be a tough fortress to pull off. Rook takes bishop is the move that David suggests. A big question here for Magnus. You can give a check with the bishop to f5, but white simply pushes the pawn, again attacking both the bishops at the same time. Magnus Carlsen in big trouble. He does go for your idea, David, sacrificing the rook. And now it's all about, is this a fortress?
Very strong. I've never seen a position like this before, where you got two bishops, you got the pawn. Magnus there, look at him. He's gesturing with his hand there. What's he saying? And
I think
was it a draw?
We have a result.
Like, really?
He played king to g2 and it ended in a draw.
Why?
I am shocked.
Why a draw?
What happened?
Hikaru giving up any winning chances. It's only white who can win. Black just has to sit and wait and hope to draw, but
that's bizarre. That's the ultimate respect, isn't it? To offer a draw in a position where you're a queen up.
This makes no sense.
You might as well play on a little bit. Possibly it's a draw. But why is he even thinking about offering a draw? Throw the H-pawn, try to use your pawns. You might as well play on. I've never seen Hikaru do that before.
And you've got no risks in the position. You can play this position forever. This is absolutely shocking. And the one player who fights it out till the end is Hikaru Nakamura. We see him reacting there. I'm shocked at his decision to actually offer a draw after moving the king.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know why he didn't play on there. Very strange decision. And you can see Magnus was shocked as well at the end. Magnus was...
he just left.
Well, he was also like, what's going on? Why did he offer me a draw? I mean, yeah, thank you. Christmas has come early. I'll take the draw. Thank you very much. And amazing. Yeah, very shocking.
And David, you get these chances against Magnus, you have to take them. You have to play this out till the end.
Yeah, unless your name is Hikaru, you nearly never get a chance against Magnus. And especially when you're 1 point down in the match. If he was ahead or if the scores were level, you can understand Nakamura trying to conserve energy. But there he could have tortured Magnus forever. He could have played a 100-move game, 200-move game, my favourite. And yeah, still some chances, very decent chances of winning. But in the end, a draw. They'll have 2 more games today. And we do zoom in on this one instead. Mamedyarov against Denis Lazovic. Let's do a quick count. Black is up a pawn, key moment. Opposite colour bishops, however, do lend themselves towards drawing tendencies, and big dilemma. Does Denis Lazovic keep his rook on the A file? The rook in the corner is attacked right now. Does he play rook A6, rook A7, but abandon the 8th rank? Or does he move that black rook away? And I think we'll see a draw instantly if white captures that black A pawn. It's a key moment. Denis Lazovic has to weigh up the pros and cons, the risk involved in playing for a win.
And meanwhile, Nepomniachtchi has taken a huge lead in his match against Anish Giri, winning the second game as well. It's turning out to be a bit of a nightmare start for Anish, who now needs to win Game 3 on demand to keep the match going. And this one, in balance, opposite colour bishops, but that A-pawn still giving black some chances.
Yeah, it just comes down to what David said. Can black play like rook A7 here and play for a win, or rook A6? And if he can, he's having a big think about this. He should do. Then the game goes on. And, I mean, white gets very active here. The rook can come down. And black has to block with the bishop if that happens. I can't see a follow-up here, though, in this position. And the black pawn may just become a queen. Yeah, I mean, this seems to be all right. So what does white play if the rook goes to A7? Maybe we'll have to go back and have a look at that one. So it looks like the back rank is the weak point, but there might be something else lurking in the position here. Maybe a rook, just rook A1. Just try to win the pawn back, right? Could be the simplest way to play.
Yeah, and if, for example, the black queen tries to use b4, I think you can just repeat the position, just keep hitting the black queen, which is stuck defending this pawn next to her. If she ever moves to a safer square, then bishop takes pawn, and it's just completely symmetrical. This game will end in a draw. He does play rook a7, Denis Lazovic. He's trying to tempt Mamedyarov into playing the active rook b8 check, but this would be a huge mistake, as we saw with the evaluation bar a moment ago. Rook check, just blocked, and black will win this game with the pawn on a4. So, okay, can Mamedyarov control the temptation and just play rook a1? Not easy in a rapid game. He does have attacking instincts, after all.
Exactly, David. I think that's the big point here, right? Not easy in a rapid game. And for a player like Shak, who's always looking for these aggressive ideas, but he needs to fight that temptation, not go in for the line with the check, but immediately just neutralize black's a-pawn, which would end the game in a draw. But he doesn't.
Wow. I mean, this is one of the problems with Shak's play. He gets a little bit too ambitious, and this move, I mean, it kind of seemed like an option, but what's his follow-up if the queen just moves away somewhere? You've got to have an idea behind your moves, and a very logical move played in the game, and he moves his rook back now. Maybe he just missed rook a1, and Denis now...
Well, bishop a4 is a threat.
It is a threat, so he's got to find a way to deal with that one here. Maybe queen a6 was the move, and
ooh, okay. I think we'll see a draw now after the bishop retreats. White does take a pawn, and the queens come off, but missed opportunity for Denis Lazovic. I think he did have opportunities. Mamedyarov playing really risky chess there, but now the game will fizzle out towards a draw.
Yeah.
With that a-pawn captured, it has been so impressive to see Denis fight in these big boy matches against the very greats in the chess world, including in the Julius Baer Generation Cup, and he keeps the match in balance against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov.
Yeah, this is definitely a draw. And yeah, I mean, there were missed opportunities. These are the kind of things when you sort of see the likes of Hikaru and Magnus, they don't generally miss those opportunities as much. That's why they're sort of at the top of the top. This is kind of a Dennis position, isn't it? You're not going to get more solid than this, and a draw now being agreed there.
Yes, fighting chess there, but Shak finding a way out, and this one ends in a draw. While this one was peaceful, every other match has been absolutely filled with fireworks in this round too, David. And I'm going to throw it back to you once again. What was the standout moment from Game 2?
Oof, I think we have to go into that match between Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura just to explain the drama that we just saw and the shock that was met with that draw offer. It was here Hikaru had a winning advantage. He'd nicely pinned the black queen and the black bishop, and this move should have clinched it. Queen to d2, queen takes c5, and Hikaru would have won on the spot if he had met this check with a block. Bishop to d4, hitting the black queen, hitting the black rook. Maybe what he had missed was that rook d8 would have been met by rook to b8, deflecting the black rook from the back rank, and next move feasting on the black queen. In the end, we saw some drama, but this was the final position. White's queen facing two bishops, and we are shocked that Hikaru offered a draw. He could still have played on, trying to push these pawns at the right moment, and the game would have continued a long time. In the end, a sigh of relief for Magnus Carlsen.
Has this been the most shocking end to a game that we've seen this season?
I think so, definitely, yeah. I mean, especially a draw offer. It's the most shocking draw offer I think we've had in the Champions Tour. I mean, when you've got no chance to lose the position, you've only got chances to win, you play on. It doesn't matter. I mean, it might be a draw in the end, but you got to try and win, right? That's the idea. So, very shocking draw there.
A very surprising decision there by Hikaru Nakamura, which means that he's still playing catch-up in his match against Magnus Carlsen going into Game 3. The score is level between the two Frenchmen. Meanwhile, Anish Giri, in a nightmare situation with a 2-point deficit, has to win Game 3 on demand. Denis Lazovic, the 16-year-old, holding his own once again against one of the best players in the world, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. And of course, big Game 3 action is coming up. And action does continue. There is big news for our Twitch community. Do not miss out this September. Through the end of this month, claim up to 30% off on all new subs on Twitch. Subscribers gain access to exclusive break time content during broadcasts, unlock new cool emotes, and score an ad-free experience on Chess.com. Don't miss out on this deal, the September deal. Subscribe now on Twitch. And of course, Game 3 action will continue as we go through day 1 of the AI Cup. We will be back with all the action in just a few moments.
Everyone loves playing chess, and everyone loves Chess Club. But there's also a time and a place for playing all your favorite games.
Hey, we're trying to have a lesson here. You need to get out of here.
Recently, more kids have been playing chess than ever in school. But sadly, we've learned that they may not always be playing chess at the most appropriate time.
Eh ben classe, aujourd'hui...
While it might be sometimes okay to grab a game between classes, or if your teacher gives you permission and hasn't given you an assignment, it's not okay to be playing chess in school when you aren't supposed to. And chess should never come between you taking your studies seriously and cooperating with your fellow students and teachers. Chess over the board or on the phone is a great way to spend time with friends. But let's make sure that this school year we don't let too much chess happen. Focus on your school, because Chess.com will always be there when class is over.
Chess is cool! Respect your school!
All right, that was awesome, everybody. Great job.
Look what I did.
Danny, did you spell that?
Yeah.
Can we get some other letters, please?
What's wrong with it?
You can find your local group, take the lead, grow the community at meetup.com/chess. And throughout this event, we will be talking a lot about AI technology throughout this final regular event. And Chess.com continues to revolutionize chess, bringing the latest and greatest to chess fans across the world. And we caught up with some of the Chess.com staff who is behind all these great developments, who make all this technological advancements possible in the chess world.
Hi, my name is Dylan Rittman. I'm a product manager here at Chess.com working on game review.
Hey, I'm Dodge Coates. I'm a tech lead on the so-called core chess team, which is largely responsible for game review. Well, it depends on your definition of AI. Certainly, by some definition, yes, it's all over the place.
Game review, coach bots, I think some colleagues who work on fair play as well, all try to take into account these kind of artificial intelligence methods when producing ways that we can help you get better at your chess and detect cheaters on the website and a few other different places on the site as well. Our products at Chess.com are always geared towards helping kind of the average user of Chess.com get better. So if you go to game review, you'll see Coach walk you through kind of the key moments of your game, and he can be very good at pointing out the tactical mistakes that you may have missed or found during the game, and obviously a few of those brilliant moves that you can try to get every now and then. The coach bots are a new product that are part of our Playverse computer suite, where you can actually play against Coach and he can walk you through the game and in real time maybe point out, hey, there's a tactic in this position, be sure to be on the lookout, or hey, you kind of missed a move back there that would have given you a crushing lead, but don't worry, I'm gonna give you another chance here. And so by using Coach real time while playing a game, it can be a really valuable tool in learning as you go and getting better at chess.
Sure. So for human-like play, it makes a lot of sense. One of the key features of such of human-like play is that they have plans and they seek to execute plans. One of the issues that you face if you try to implement this in the old-fashioned way, so to speak, is it's very difficult to capture plans. So that's one case where I could see us totally finding great use in these newer techniques.
Obviously, it feels like a natural fit to use these large language models in game review that literally has a virtual coach trying to talk to you and walk you through various moves. But what we've noticed in kind of experimenting with these language models is that it's a well-known problem that they're often just ever so slightly wrong. But the problem is when it comes to chess, the line between being right and wrong about a chess move or a chess position is often really subtle. And so a lot of the work we've done developing game review kind of without these new AI tools is actually much more accurate and much more correct in identifying what's important about your chess move. But looking to the future, it would be really cool to kind of combine the tech we've already developed here at Chess.com with some of these new large language models to kind of get the best of both worlds. And that's definitely something we'll be exploring in the future as one of the many projects that the team's working on. We really hope you've enjoyed this discussion. We're always working hard to make chess more understandable, and using both new and old forms of AI is always going to be a big part of that. Thanks so much.
Whether you're an advanced chess fan, chess player, or a newer chess audience, so many cool features on Chess.com using AI to help you improve your chess. Game review is definitely one of my favorites. And right now, we've got some of the big favorites of the chess world fighting it out in the AI Cup, including the two of the very best with a matchup against each other. Magnus Carlsen with a lead against Hikaru Nakamura. A shocking game to decision by Hikaru, which let Magnus off the hook a little too soon. That could have been a big fight, a potential comeback by Hikaru. And there he is on the screen. He's got to do it all over again. And this time, he starts with the black pieces.
Yeah, this time he starts with the black pieces, and the name of the game is survival for Nakamura. If Magnus wins this one, the match is over for today. 2.5 points will clinch it, and Magnus goes back to that tried and trusted recipe. Knight f3, opening with the Reti opening. Yeah, it served him well in the first game, Simon, and we see a repeat. Do you think Nakamura will be keen to continue down that path from game 1 of the day?
I don't think he'll go b6 here. I think b6 is a really risky move, and he's changed up his openings here. I mean, I think he's just got to try to draw this game, unless he gets some chances, of course, and he's got to get that last game out of his mind, because he probably put it on the computer engine afterwards, and you can see his reaction. He was very upset with himself, so he's got to distance himself away from what happened there and that draw offer. What will he play here, though? Many options. He could go into a King's Indian defence. He could play a pawn into the centre here. He could try to play a symmetrical kind of English position. But, yeah, which one do you think he will go for?
Well, in difficult situations, when you're down a point, when it's really kind of crunch time, where you have to kind of win on demand or at least survive, then go back to what you know best, King's Indian. He's famous for it, right, Simon?
Yeah.
That was how he kind of rose through the ranks to the top of world chess. He played the King's Indian, and he doesn't employ it that much these days. That's the one.
It's a very risky opening. So, we're talking about G6 here. Favourite opening of Bobby Fischer, Garry Kasparov. It can get very sharp there, and he has played it. I'm really happy to see this move. It's very exciting, and Magnus playing in the centre, so we could get a mainline King's Indian defence. And I'd always been interested to see what Magnus has against the King's Indian defence here. He's going to have something. We have the main line. This is great to see.
I can
really exciting.
Feel you salivating, Simon. You're excited.
Yeah, I am really excited. I mean, I love the King's Indian defence. I mean, the computer, the evaluation generally says that Black is struggling in this opening, but it's a really counter-attacking opening. So you can see White's pawns in the middle look so scary. They're taking over the middle of the board, but Black has all these counter-attacking jabs with his pawns, and often later on he can generate a kingside attack. So what will he play here? The main line, maybe?
That is the big question. So no more KG Queen's Indian defense by Hikaru Nakamura. He goes for the ultra-sharp King's Indian, and we are in for a classical fight there. We see Hikaru developing the knight. This one's going to be a big battle given the match situation. That's what he needs. And in this matchup, also, Anish Giri needs to create his chances with the black pieces. Jan Nepomniachtchi needs just a draw to wrap up the match in 3 games. And he starts with White. He plays the King's Pawn opening. This is going to be a tough one for Anish.
Especially with the black pieces. I mean, his style is not really aimed at winning with black. I mean, most of the top players' styles, they don't take too many risks. So he had to go for the Sicilian, and it'd be very interesting to see what line he goes for. Bishop b5 check Sicilian, one of the safest variations there.
And I'm just wondering, I mean, we're talking about Jan needing a draw. He's just switched off the lights in his room. Is he already getting ready for the match, about to get over? What's going on there?
Getting ready for bed. So, yeah, just wants to draw this one and get some sleep, right? So
we should mention it's been a long day for Jan. He was actually in action in another tournament earlier today. He's playing in the Levitov Chess Week, I believe in Switzerland. And yeah, he's, I think, played 5 games against world-class opposition earlier today before he even started this match against Anish. So yeah, he's ready for bed. He's ready for sleep. He wants this game to be lights out, and he wants to take it here and now. But we've seen a trade of pawns. It's another Bishop b5 check Sicilian, as you mentioned, Simon, and it's a repeat almost of the game they had earlier. Game 1 was also this Bishop b5 check Sicilian. Slightly different setup there. But Anish, he needs to improve. He needs to get that win. And on demand against this rock-solid pawn structure for White, it's going to be an uphill struggle.
Yeah, it's very hard to get some dynamic chances here because you're lacking a lot of space, but you don't have many like really cool ways to break out. So, yeah, I agree with you, David. This is going to be very tough to just create any chances here.
And you've got a chance to win a Magnus Carlsen signed T-shirt. On our screen is the puzzle of the day, and you can send us your answers on Twitter using the hashtag ChessChamps to win the Magnus Carlsen signed T-shirt. And I think we're going to have that up. It's right here, Simon. You're
yeah.
Oh, the other way around. Oh,
there we go. It is there. The signature is there. And there's one on the back as well at the bottom.
It's a cool T-shirt.
You can't wash it, though, unfortunately, so because you don't want to get rid of Magnus's signature. But frame it; it'll be worth millions.
One day it will, and that's the puzzle that you got to solve. And right now, we've also got action on the other boards. As Anish Giri in this one thinks, ponders how to create his chances. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave against Alireza Firouzja is still a level match. Both games ended in a draw, but the chess itself was anything but peaceful.
Yeah, anything but peaceful. We've got to commend these players for playing such accurate chess, such fantastic chess, but also dynamic, aggressive play. And wow, talking of aggression, the Sicilian Najdorf, it doesn't get much more fighting than this, Simon.
It doesn't, no. I mean, MVL is like the leading expert, but he's quite predictable. He nearly always plays this opening, and oh, I love it. We're getting queenside castling here. This is going to be very exciting. Where does the black king go? And black doesn't worry about the moment. Black starts counterplay straight away. So one of the sharpest and most tactical openings that you can possibly hope for. So yeah, going to be a great game.
Can be a fantastic game, and you can see how well these two players know this opening, all the details, all the nuances, because they're playing at breakneck speed. Both players with more time than they started the game with, and we're already at move 14 in a wild opening. White's king on the queen side, black's king in the center. We're going to see pawns thrown towards each other. It is very similar, maybe if not exactly the same as their first game of the day, but yeah, still fighting chess guaranteed.
Yeah, I think it looks like a repeat here. This is where I think White took the knight at some point, and then Black recaptured with the pawn as well. So this is following that game, which was dynamic but pretty equal all the way through. There hasn't been anything between these two players, right? I mean, they're just blow to blow so far, and I don't know. This could be an Armageddon match, certainly. I feel.
Yeah. Is it surprising to you that Firouzja kind of blitzed into this position, first 15 moves identical to their game early in the day, and then paused? He has played a different move, though.
He has, yeah. Another aggressive move, just trying to create some play against the centre and potentially on the king side, a very normal break. And now MVL is thinking he must have looked at this move at some point, I would have thought, at least.
Maxim Vachier-Lagrave has been on a fiery form the last couple of months with his performance at the Tata Steel Chess India Blitz and making it through to the semi-finals in the SCC. Right now, in the think after Alireza's last move, F5, an encounter in the center. Meanwhile, our final encounter is also underway as Denis Lazovic with the white pieces will take on Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. This matchup also level. Starts with the queen's pawn. We've been talking about how it will be decisive, the player that gets their kind of position. And so far in this battle, it seems like Denis has been getting his kind of positions.
Definitely. Game one, Denis Lazovic versus Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. It was slow, it was strategic, eventually fizzled out to a draw. Game two, again, blocked pawn structure, Mamedyarov unable to attack, and Lazovic had some decent chances. So will he be able to kind of initiate that again for a third time? Look how solid Lazovic is playing here. Symmetrical pawn structure, no trades, no sacrifices, no drama. He's just going about trying to frustrate his opponent.
I can see this going to Armageddon as well, right? I mean, this is really quite, well, I'm going to say dull, but I mean, it's very symmetrical. It's not that dull because all the pieces remain on the board, so it may well heat up later on, but it's the kind of position which Denis likes playing. He doesn't like taking any risk. He understands chess so well, and he's going to wait until the middle game to try and outplay his opponent with some careful manoeuvres. And Shaq just developing his pieces quite sensibly here, and at least we're getting some dynamism in the position at the moment.
But it's still far away from when we get a break in this one. Meanwhile, a lot of action in the Magnus-Hikaru matchup. Let's go straight back to the battle between these two greats. Magnus taking on Hikaru with the white pieces, and wow. And that one, as we will bring it up shortly, right now Shakhriyar is lining up the bishop and the queen, trying to get that bishop to h3 to trade off the light square bishops. But let's jump to our marquee matchup. Magnus against Hikaru, and an interesting pawn structure there. We keep talking about pawn structures because they really are the soul of the position, determining the play, where the players play, which side they play on, and also who has the advantage. We see a double pawn on the A line for Hikaru, but in compensation, he's got the long-term bishop pair.
Yeah, long-term, Hikaru has decent chances. Short-term, it's all about whether Magnus can profit from Black's kind of fractured structure, and there is a big hole in Black's camp that Magnus will be aiming towards, angling towards with his knights. So I think we have to jump in. Just a quick action replay of what's happened. This is the current position. We left the game around here. Black struck out in the center, and Magnus was happy after an attack on the Black Queen to simply kind of trade off in the center. The fighting move here would have been stepping forward, proper King's Indian style, where Black would attack on the king side, White on the queen side. But Magnus, remember, he's leading in the match, so he takes the safe option. And queen to c1, really sneaky, lining up on this diagonal, trying to kick back the Black Knight next move. And this is how we got that structure. Pawn to c5, a sacrifice. If the Black Knight takes this pawn, then White is doing pretty well after knight to d5, hitting this pawn and unleashing an attack against the Black Knight. So instead, c6 and a trade. And now I think everything on the king side, kind of this half of the board, looks pretty balanced, pretty kind of level. It's all about the other flank. And I'm looking at these black pawns, I'm thinking those are ugly. Okay, Magnus first kicks back the Black Knight and then centralizes his rook. If he can somehow maneuver one of these two knights into the beautiful d6 square, long term, Magnus is simply winning. But Hikaru, of course, has 3 or 4 moves to fight against that. He starts by hitting this pawn.
What Hikaru really wants to get, I think, is that f-pawn rolling. As we were talking about this, get that f5 going. You've got the bishop pair. You want to open up the position as quickly as possible. The knight maneuver for White, always in the air. Magnus, you pointed this out, knight d2, knight c4. Get that knight onto that d6 square. A plan that has been stopped right now by Magnus's move, knight e8. And f5 is on the board. This is going to get chaotic.
Yeah, this is very standard idea in the King's Indian defence. If you can't play f5 as Black, then the opening would be complete rubbish. But this move is the move that generates loads of play. The pawn can storm forwards, as the other pawns on the King's side can. The evaluation bar, again, it nearly always dislikes Black's position in these kind of cases, but Black gets active play. It's a very risky opening, and it's very brave of Hikaru to play this opening in a game which he can't lose because it comes with a lot of risk.
Yeah, it comes with a lot of risk. We pointed out strategically Black on the queen side suffering short-term and long-term, but right now that's irrelevant. It's all about whether Magnus can stem the flow of these Black pawns. They're just going to storm down the board like an avalanche. I think you might have to just take this Black pawn before it continues advancing. But OK, there we go, a trade of pawns. At least now you've held up that kind of pawn push temporarily. White's queen being on the same diagonal as the Black king. A little awkward pin there for Hikaru. And now another pin, Simon. This move, rook to e1. It looks like Magnus has lost a bit of time. He's kind of yo-yoed back and forth with the white rook, but he's lining up.
Yeah, this is maybe the problem with the pawns here that Black has. They can be overextended. They look kind of dangerous, and if Black can consolidate those pawns, he's probably all right. But the bishop now, White's bishop on e3, maybe just threatening to come in and attack the pawn in the centre again and make it move again. And Hikaru's got to be a bit careful here, I think. His position could implode unless he finds some very clever moves there.
Yeah, that being said, he's up on the clock, 3 or 4 minutes. He's got to be pretty happy with the outcome here, Hikaru. I think against anyone else in the world, he'd be feeling pretty confident right now. But it is Magnus, and of course, long-term strategic things against Magnus. If it ever gets down to an endgame, we know who's going to be the favourite there. So the stakes are really high for Hikaru in this double-edged middle game.
Yep.
Stakes are extremely high for Hikaru, and not just Hikaru. In Division 2, stakes are extremely high for Big Fish, for Vladimir Fedoseev, who is fighting it out for those tour points to get through to Toronto. He has won his match against Kuzubov, so advances to the winners' quarterfinal, where he will be playing against Vincent Kayma. And for Fedoseev, the path is clear. He needs to get those 50 tour points by winning Division 2, needs some results in Division 1 to go his way to book that spot. And he did have a really big chance in the plains when he was playing against Anish Giri, a winning position. But Anish is the one who won that match, made it through to Division 1. And Fedoseev now fighting it out in Division 2 with a good start. And this one seems to be a good start for Magnus. That last move, rook to e1, also threatening the bishop jumping onto the center of the board, lining up the pressure along that e5 pawn. If it's white to play, I would love to play the move bishop to d4 right now. I'm not only hitting that e5 pawn, but once you do advance that pawn to e4, I'm happy to trade off the dark square bishops.
Yeah.
Yep, good move.
Very good move here. And I'm also wondering if there were tactics. I don't think quite yet with knight takes e4. Getting carried away calculating. This looks very, very tempting because suddenly you're attacking the black queen and you're lining up on this diagonal. But black does have a nice reply here. Bishop to f5, breaking the tension between the queen, and this is a pin. We'll just see a trade, and black, after the dust clears, is a piece up. It's key that the knight defends the bishop, but this is the type of thing, the type of variation going through both players' heads right now. Nakamura doesn't really want to break the integrity of these pawns by pushing either of them forward. As Tanya mentioned, suddenly here, black would lose control over all of the dark squares. For example, white doesn't even need to capture yet. White can just bring more pieces into the action. So he doesn't want to touch anything. How to prevent this threat? Bishop to d4, maybe bishop to f4 as well.
I would love to play the move rook to g8. The g line is open. I want to line up my rook against your king, but I think still the idea of bishop d4 is in the air to neutralize pressure. And now, also I just realized, once the rook moves to g8, David, your idea after e4, and then you can sacrifice on e4. So there are a lot of these tricks that actually exist in the position. e4, knight e4 suddenly becomes game.
Yeah, still some complications there, but very, very tempting here for white. And okay, Hikaru wanted none of this drama, none of these tactics. Rooks opposite queens, that's the most uncomfortable situation in a chess game. So getting out of the way, getting out of dodge, queen f7 looks very healthy. I expect your idea next, Tanya. If black gets time, rook g8, queen g6 lining up against the white king, and this could turn.
And Simon, I'm just thinking still about what we saw in game 2, right? This is such a gutsy position for Hikaru to get into. And he's somebody who's really known to take these brave decisions over the board. He doesn't shy away from any complications. Give him an opportunity and he takes it. And then he gets into this risk-free endgame and then just lets Magnus off the hook.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're being a little bit harsh. I mean, it could be possible that their understanding is, well, certainly a lot better than mine. And Hikaru just looked at it and said, well, I'm playing Magnus, the best endgame player in the world.
Oh,
I can't get through here. I think he should have played on anyway. I mean, you know, when you got risk-free position...
Let me rephrase that, Simon. If Magnus is playing that position with white...
he'd always play on. And it reminds me of a famous story of Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer was playing another strong grandmaster and he got into the ending rook and knight versus rook, which is a draw, but you have the extra knight. And his opponent offered him a draw, and Bobby Fischer just said, why would I take a draw? I'm a knight up. Of course, the game ended in a draw, but you can at least pressurise your opponent. So it was very strange, that decision, and he could certainly regret that. I mean, looking at this position, it just seems like black's pieces are very stale here. They're not energised. So, you know, it's dangerous position.
And exactly what you said, right? Even if the game ends in a draw, it's on your terms. You let Magnus earn that draw by fighting out that defense. And David, we know that Kaisa is not happy with such decisions.
Yeah, the goddess of chess. She punishes people who end the games too quickly, who don't fight to the bitter end, who don't take kind of principled, active, aggressive decisions. And yeah, Nakamura offering a draw in that last game. If he gets eliminated here, or at least pushed down to the other bracket by Magnus winning, then he'll look back, he'll think, missed opportunity, at least psychologically playing on. I mean, that's, for me at least, the most pleasure you can get from chess, just asserting your dominance over the opponent. You're asserting your authority by kind of showing them, okay, I'm the one trying to win, I'm the one trying to win. You're just playing for a draw at the very best. And, okay, we'll see. History is, of course, written by the winners, but Hikaru right now looks like he's in a bit of trouble on the board. I love what Magnus has been doing. He's slowly maneuvered. It's taken 2 moves, but he's brought his knight round to the king side. White's king, much more secure, much more comfortable now. And also black's king on the diagonal, starting to feel the heat potentially.
Yeah, it is. And if the king, I'm just looking at a line, tries to step back so it moves out to the diagonal, I think Magnus has a very clever idea of moving his knight to the side of the board. Maybe we can show that knight to h4 potentially here. And you know, black would love to mobilise one of those pawns, but you can never move the f-pawn forwards because you actually get checkmated here, or you have to give up your queen with a very nice combination of the white queen coming in with checkmate. So those pawns, they're often like, are they strong or are they hanging? This is the question. And the more this game is developing, the more they seem to be hanging, and they seem to be very, very weak pawns in the position. So, yeah, I mean, it's still problems for Hikaru to overcome here, but he has the time. If he can maintain those pawns, he will be doing pretty well.
Yeah, the problem is what to do for Hikaru. This rook is kind of stranded offside, disconnected. It's kind of the board is cut in half. It can't join its army. This black knight wants to kind of vacate the back rank, get to an active post, but if you ever move it away, the white rook will be ready to pounce into the heart of black's position. Remember, this square is a nice little hole, and pawns will start to drop. So I just don't really see any productive moves. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, you don't want to break the integrity of your pawns. And the most logical move, stepping out of the eye line of the white queen, does have its drawbacks, as Simon mentioned. So really, really difficult, and that is reflected in how much time Hikaru has been taking over the last few turns. Magnus, the clocks are roughly level, but Magnus has been kind of upping the momentum, upping the speed here, starting to hint at those threats, as we highlighted as well. And, OK, the king does drop back. I'm expecting your move on the board, Simon.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how he's going to defend against this move. I mean, the white knight coming in, and he does play it immediately. I think black's only move is to play e4 here, but it looks kind of loose, right? OK, he's just defended his pawn in a sensible way, but everything is just hanging on for black here. And, you know, one wrong move and it's going to collapse this position. But is there a way to break through immediately here?
And if Magnus actually is able to convert this one, that's just match over for Hikaru. That's a collapse of the match for Hikaru. Magnus in driver's seat right now. The bishop has dropped back to d2, so ideas of rerouting the bishop to the other diagonal. You want to put it to c3. Again, target that central e5 pawn, trying to get rid of black's dark squared bishop. Things are looking bleak for Hikaru right now in a King's Indian defense with the black pieces. You want to get to white's king. You want to try to create your attack, but he hasn't been very successful so far.
No.
Yeah, I just don't see any moves. My first instinct was there's too much pressure on this pawn. Let's try and, for example, kick this knight away. But suddenly this would walk into a beautiful tactic. Rook takes pawn, and the black queen is overworked. She cannot take this rook. It's poisoned because of a nice family fork here, a royal fork on the king, queen, and rook. And, of course, if the black queen takes this knight as well, then her bishop would drop, and white would have picked up a very important pawn. So tactics are working out in white's favor. And normally, as a player, psychologically, when you're calculating in your head and things are always working against you, always kind of turning out well for your opponents, suddenly you start to collapse, you panic. And bishop c3 is so annoying. All these dark squared weaknesses towards the black king. Yeah, King's Indian, you want to be attacking. You don't want to be on the defensive. I think your move from earlier, Simon, must be played sooner or later, e4 now or on the next few turns. But then white will, of course, trade off the dark squared bishops. And if white's knights ever kind of land on f4, that would be a beautiful position and a strategic domination for white.
I mean, I can see why Hikaru doesn't want to play that move, because as soon as you do play that, your pawns lose a lot of the fluidity that they have. He'd love to move the other pawn and try to start an attack, but you can never do this because the g6 square is just too weak.
It's on the board.
It's on.
Whoa!
Really? Is he giving up the queen?
What's happened here?
What is happening here? Wow, he's randomizing.
He's gambling. Hikaru Nakamura. This is going to land with a check. I think this is almost guaranteed at this point. Magnus will give this check. The difference here is it's not game over. It's not checkmate, because this time the king can use the g8 square, which was liberated by the black rook last turn. And he's just giving up material here. He's hoping for knight takes rook potentially, because suddenly he'll take the other knight. And this white knight has no time to save itself, because there's a nasty threat of pawn takes pawn on f2. Evaluation bar still says this is winning for white, or very promising at least. But the question here is whether this white knight can simply move. Maybe it retreats. If you're feeling ambitious and brave, you might go to the side of the board. I think Nakamura here, he's banking on bishop to f5, a double attack against the queen and the knight. But there is a trick. There is a trap, as always, as we've seen actually a theme of this game. Queen takes, sacrificing, and a fork at the end. And I think white here will end up in a very promising endgame.
Yeah, it looks like it, because you're going to eliminate black's dark square bishop and then play this bishop c3, right? And again, it's those pawns, the pawns in the center, they just seem a little bit too weak. They're hanging pawns. White's rooks and the bishop are brilliantly placed, and this position is kind of collapsing. So yeah, it's I kind of like the idea, because he's got to take a risk, but it's hard to get away with such a move against Magnus Carlsen, right? I mean, against me, easy, but I mean, not against Magnus. And what does he play here then? I think he's got to. I mean, I'm not sure. They're both disgusting, those lines. So, you know, if you've got a choice between two bad options, what would you go for?
Yeah. We're expecting Magnus now to play knight h5. He's kind of controlled himself. He's paused here. He's calculating. But that line, there we go, knight to h5. It's very linear. It's very direct. And suddenly, look at Hikaru's reaction. Knight h5 landed on the board. He looked away in disgust. And he now realized that the bishop to f5 does not work. The move he was relying upon, it looked like a double attack, but White's queen would just capture on f5, and that fork, all those kind of trades lead to a winning endgame for White. And that's why the bars got so excited. Hikaru in huge trouble.
Yeah, you can tell from his face that, I mean, if this move doesn't work, then he's going to be at least losing the exchange. But Magnus can also just move his bishop, take the dark. I mean, everything is working well for Magnus, and I don't see Hikaru making it to the fourth game. I just can't see how he can do it here.
Yeah, I don't think he'll make it for the next couple of moves in this one. He does fall back with the bishop, so not allowing the trade on g7. Does White have time now to actually just get greedy with that rook on f8? Knight f8, is that what you just go for and ask Black to actually show what compensation you've got?
Knight f8 before it's too late.
Nice one, David.
I don't hate. It's winning material. It's just a question of whether Magnus is feeling greedy. Maybe there's something even better here for White. Still, this threat of bishop to f5 for Black, it's unclear whether that's actually possible because of all those forks, those knight checks we were highlighting a moment ago. And Magnus here maybe just wondering whether he can slow play it, keep building up, because those white knights aren't going away anywhere anytime soon. And Nakamura is shaking his head again.
Yeah. I mean, this is... I think Hikaru's only chance here is White's knight on h5 is lacking some squares. White's knight right on the side of the board, but with careful calculation here, I mean, just look at White's pieces and look at Black's pieces. Black's pieces, they're hovering on the back rank, they're all sleeping, they can't go anywhere. White's pieces are all developed, they're all active, and just for that reason alone, it's creaking badly for Black.
That's a good point you make. The knight on h5 doesn't have squares. So if White does get greedy with the rook on f8, what Hikaru might be banking on is king f8. And now he's asking questions, how are you actually defending that knight on h5? I see g4 is a move, but I would be a little hesitant to play that.
Yeah, at the very least, Hikaru would get some counter-attacking chances against the White King. Evaluation bar has, of course, no fear of ghosts. It says White is just winning here with the extra material, rook for bishop. But yeah, this is what Hikaru is banking on. At least from a human point of view, Magnus would get slightly nervous here. White's king not entirely safe. So good practical chance by Hikaru. I like his last move, bishop h8, and it has forced Magnus to think. But yeah, knight takes rook looks promising, knight takes bishop looks promising. This pawn is collapsing. Magnus spoilt for choice, and he does go for the material. He does play g4.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm pretty sure he's made of AI, Magnus Carlsen. I'm pretty sure he's... artificial intelligence just embodied and just fearless.
Careful what you say. You know, we don't want to get the stockfish.
I mean, he's been learning from day one. He's been teaching himself, learning from himself.
He has. I mean, he just sees everything, doesn't he? And I mean, this you can see it on Hikaru's face. I mean, he realizes that it's backfired. It was a risky opening. And it seems, I mean, he's just playing so well, Magnus Carlsen. Not just in this match, but in the last couple of months, he's dominating everyone pretty much.
Yeah, he does seem unstoppable right now. Chess from another planet. You said AI, artificial intelligence. It's absolutely insane. Is the AI that I think of when you think about Magnus?
That's what I meant, everyone. AI, I meant actually insane, like his chess. Yeah, and okay, en passant, flashy move there from Hikaru, but White zooms in with a check. And I think we will see the final flourishes on this game. White's knight saves itself. White is up a whole exchange and a pawn. And Black's king side in tatters.
Yeah.
Looks like Magnus Carlsen is about to wrap up his match in just 3 games. And huge update that Nepomniachtchi has already done it against Anish Giri. That game ended in a draw, so Anish Giri is now down to his last life, will go down to the loser's bracket, while Nepomniachtchi continues in the winner's bracket. Hikaru Nakamura, he continues to play, but it's not just a position. You can look at him and you know that he's feeling hopeless about his chances right now. Grabs a pawn on the other edge of the board. I don't think anyone cares about that pawn.
No.
Look at Black's king.
It's kind of desperate, right? I mean, if you're in a bad position anyway, you might as well try to grab as much material as you can. And but I mean, maybe White can now swing a rook over. You just need to attack the weakened Black king here. That Black king, it's not just that White's material up, as you mentioned. The Black king is so exposed, and Those rooks, I just think they can join in the attack probably here. Might even be something stronger, but it looks horrendous. And the queen instead. This is also going to be a killer blow.
Magnus and his queen moves. Tell me a better love story.
Yeah.
He loves his queens.
Especially in the center of the board. I don't know how they always end up on these amazing squares. Why it's, well, Magnus's queens in particular. It gives a check. Black's king sidelined. And, okay, again, spoiled for choice. And sometimes that isn't a good thing when you know you're winning, when you have too many tempting moves. Magnus's clock as well, under 1 minute. But, of course, it's those queens again. She lines up against the black king. And Hikaru now threatened with a devastating discovered check. The white bishop hoping to jump out the way next move, and what to do, how to defend.
You've got to go back with the king. You've got to sidestep any big check with the bishop. King to g8 comes to my mind.
Yeah, king to g8. I can't see much else. I mean, I guess white's, yeah, and Hikaru has played it. He's got to get away from that check. And how does white now finish this off? I mean, 3 pieces attacking against an exposed king is normally enough, but it feels like you might need one more. Okay, the knight is now aiming for a better square, and a rook coming to g3 where the knight just came from is also going to be terminal here. So Hikaru doing his best, but he's doing his best in a very bad situation.
Yeah, rook d3, rook e3, huge threats here on the board. Both of those white rooks just need to somehow swing across to the open g-file, and any check here will just spell the end of the game. Hikaru, he's defended pretty well since that kind of flurry of tactics, but it's going to be hard to prolong this game further. I think he'll be looking back on that draw. We mentioned it, momentum changes. We talked about their rivalry throughout the last decade or more, and often it's just 1 or 2 moves that kind of cost you in these high-pressure situations.
You said this before, David, as well. You said that, you know, when you offer a draw, when you shouldn't be, you know, the god of chess is really unhappy, right? And she will punish you. And that is the case here. I mean, he should have played on. He had some chance to at least annoy Magnus. He didn't do that, and, well, it's creaking now.
It really is creaking. Queen f5 played, but that doesn't threaten anything. It doesn't save anything. And I'm expecting your maneuver here. There we go. Magnus plays it instantly. The white rook swings up and across.
And that black rook still on 8, hasn't made a single move, a single contribution to the game. So he's not only down an exchange, but actually playing without the other rook as well. Rook g3, a big threat on the board. I won't be surprised if Hikaru just decides to end the torture here.
Yeah, I mean,
right here, right now.
Rook g3 and rook f3 is a threat just to win the black queen. And if you take it, you've got knight g5 check. I can't see any way to defend. And let's have a look on his face. Is this the moment where he's going to have to go down into the lower bracket? He's holding on a little bit more, but they're getting in each other's way as well, those pieces. And you know, every white piece is piling over. 20 seconds each. I mean, you can still blunder. You might as well play on.
Yeah, we saw some mouse slips. We saw some crazy turnarounds in the Speed Chess Championship final. So never say never. Hikaru doing the right thing and fighting on. Never resign too early. Never offer a draw too early either. But this one, he's fighting to the bitter end. The problem is his bishop disappears, and now Magnus...
Queen e7, knight f6.
He has a check.
He's got to go king g6.
You've got to go king g6.
Oh, but this check could be a killer. Magnus using geometry here. Loose pieces drop off. The black queen undefended. I think after one more accurate check here, the black king will be forced to a square. The white knight can jump out the way. The black queen would have dropped.
And that's the one. Queen d7 check on the board. And Hikaru Nakamura, with a shake of his head, resigns. Magnus Carlsen taking the match in just 3 games. A dominating performance today. And it all comes down to that game 2, where Hikaru did have his shot. Might not have been enough, but he could have continued. But right now, no revenge for Hikaru Nakamura. And this one is still on. Alireza Firouzja trying to target Maxim's king, but also Maxim lining up against Alireza's king on the queen side, and both players playing on minutes.
These positions are crazy. I mean, you look at these guys' games, and the position looks like one side must be winning, but the evaluation bar's always like, no, it's always even. You know, even, I mean, look at it. There's stuff going on to both of those kings, David. I mean, I mean, white's king's getting attacked, black's king's getting attacked. Oh, there's a lovely idea there. I think that...
We had to show that. There was a huge threat on the board momentarily, just for that 1 second. But of course, defended by Vachier-Lagrave. Rook to d3. We saw it in the Magnus game, swinging across a rook. But here, there's a deadly threat. If pawn takes pawn, Firouzja would have sacrificed his queen. Queen takes pawn, and what we call a lawnmower checkmate. The black king now cut on the edge of the board and would have been trapped. But Maxim, of course, not allowing this. Queen to e5 prevents this idea because queen takes pawn now would have allowed a block from the black queen, and black would have been up a rook at the very end. So who's attacking who? It's unclear. Whose king is weaker? The white king not entirely safe either. A threat was lined up, but black simply advances. Chaos.
But for Maxim, he can be happy about those extra 2 minutes on the clock. In such a position, that's exactly what you need. And notice how he keeps that h5 pawn defended from any sacrifices from that rook to g5. A rook h5 is not possible anymore, and b takes a3, taking that pawn on the queen side. A big threat on the board. 10 seconds for Firouzja. This is not an easy position to defend with white.
It's not an easy position with 1 hour on your clock, let alone a few seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, queen G, do you have to go queen
seconds.
G4? He's gone queen F4, but now black's going to get the chance to attack. And I don't think there's any... Is there any threats here? Rook takes H5 is potentially a threat. Is that right? I mean, it's a way to maybe get a perpetual. All these games always end in a draw. They're always so crazy. They always end in perpetual check with correct play. And maybe after pawn takes pawn, white takes on H5. And is that a draw, though?
Yeah,
King
with
G8?
the H-rook.
Yes, with the H-rook, yeah. That would be the idea, but I don't know, maybe
Do you
not.
see it? Because after you can just maybe recapture with the pawn, so it might not be the threat right now. And Maxim is calculating all these lines.
Yeah, and Maxim has just under 2 minutes. I think we need a helping hand from the computer. What does the engine suggest here as black's best move? Because we see the evaluation bar. There's only one move that gives the advantage. Actually, only 2 moves for black avoid defeat. But one is very strong, and that's queen to e1 check. And let's show this on the board. Maxim has to find this. Anything else, and this could completely turn. Queen to e1 is the key move. Because of geometry, again, queen to e1. If the white king moves, then double attack. A check, hitting the king, hitting the rook, and white's rook would now be forced to block this check and no more attack against the black king. I think black would take over, and it's crashing through now on b3, but this is not obvious. Queen to e1. Maybe this would force the white queen to drop back and we'd head into an endgame, and even that is unclear.
Yep.
What a move that would be if Maxim finds it.
Will he find it? I think he'll find it.
Big question.
Yeah.
Now he's taken about a minute, under a minute on the clock, and he does find it. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, the 2021 World Blitz champion, precise there. And white has to put the rook. Stop the check. He would have lost the rook on h3 otherwise. David, there was a big threat that white had to take on h5 with rook g7 coming in earlier. And I don't know if you have a quick moment to show Simon's idea, because that is what Maxim had to fight against.
Yeah, just to show how strong these players are. Queen to e1 check, the only move. If you'd taken this pawn, white would have won on the spot with rook takes pawn. Either black has to lose the queen and actually get checkmated, or black would have taken this pawn and a nasty checkmate at the end here. And this would have been game over. So huge turnaround potential, but let's go back to the game because it's still equally crazy. Look at this white king. Who's checkmating who? That's the big question.
Well, if it's black's move, queen e1 is game over. But it is black's move. Queen e1, queen c1 you've got. You've still got a defense against the check.
And white also has that threat of rook h5, forcing checkmate. I mean, so queen e1 looks forced, and
you get a check from e4?
Yeah, maybe rook e1 as well is another option. Just try to get another piece into the attack. Rook e8, I meant, coming down to e1. And this is looking good for black now. White's piece is maybe a little bit misplaced.
Ooh, and the clock really playing with fire there. Firouzja, he played that move with 2 seconds left. Rook to c3, he's trying desperately to defend, safeguard his king. But the black queen can simply move now. There are no threats anymore against the black king. And if black can coordinate something, all of his major pieces, the rooks and black queen, all against the white king, this should be over. He starts with a check.
And Alireza's played the last 5 moves with 2 seconds on the clock. I have no idea how he's keeping his composure and his calm right now, but he continues to fight and not making any blunders, any checkmates on the board. Maxim, with all the pressure, now targeting that f6 key pawn in white's position.
Wow, he's just holding on here, isn't he? His back rank, white's first rank, is so weak. If black can ever get... Oh, and look at the king now. He's opened up the king even more.
Mate on a2.
Oh, rook e1 is also winning the queen. This is probably the end here. I don't think there's any way that white can defend. What an exciting game. Brilliant game there from MVL. Brilliant.
Incredible attacking technique by Maxim Vachier-Lagrave gets him the point against Alireza Firouzja, who resigns after that last queen move with multiple threats. And there it is, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave with the win, which means that Firouzja has to win the final game on demand. It's been an incredible battle between these two players. And wow, the action still continues in this amazing battle between Denis Lazovic and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. And this one's quite a different position from the kind of positions we've been seeing in the match so far.
Yeah, suddenly Mamedyarov, for the first time in this head-to-head encounter, has his type of position. Black is a piece down, but is throwing everything at the white king. And wow, suddenly using some pins here, kicking away the white queen from the defense. White has to be really careful. I think you have to be a bit cautious about where you kind of place your queen right now. Wow, that white king is living on the edge. Simon, this is your type of position. Do you think Mamedyarov is going to break through?
Well, I mean, it's a crazy position, isn't it? I mean, you got rook g8 and queen takes. Is he offering a draw now just by moving the rook back and forwards?
Looks like
That would be, I mean, I would love to try and play for a win in the position, but maybe Mamedyarov just decides that he can't do it. But
he's got 8 seconds.
He's got 8 seconds. But Denis now down to 10 seconds. Ooh. We're going to find out now, is he going to take the draw or is he going to find a way to play on here? I think it's going to head to a draw.
Yeah, and promising position from Mamedyarov, but he had no time, and he repeats 3 times we see that position, and chaotic draw, but a draw nonetheless, and the score's still tied.
That was an absolutely insane game and a finish that we just caught in time between Denis Lazovic and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. So this match remains level. And wow, we've had 2 matches that are decided already. Jan Nepomniachtchi, Magnus Carlsen taking the win, the match in this one in just 3 games. David, what was the big moment?
Well, impressive play, of course, from Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi to win their matches in just 3 games. But I want to highlight that breathtaking win by MVL just for the pure drama and that really rare situation of both sides kind of with mutual attacks. And he lived life on the edge. Vachier-Lagrave, the black king, was in trouble earlier, as we saw, but it was here that he clinched it. He's going for the white king, trapped in the corner, and this first move, a sacrifice, a rook sacrifice, rook to c8. If we see a capture here and the white queen getting too greedy, we would have seen a back rank checkmate on the first rank here. And of course, the clincher after rook to c8 we saw was this move. Rook takes rook, and if rook takes back, queen to f2, and black would penetrate on the first rank. Instead, he delivers checkmate on the second rank. Game over with a beautiful attack.
Just amazing play by one of the most attacking, aggressive players of modern chess, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, finishing it in style. And this is the storyline so far. With just 1 more rapid game remaining, Magnus Carlsen, Jan Nepomniachtchi have put Anish, Giri and Hikaru Nakamura down in the elimination bracket, while Alireza has to win the 4th game to take it to tiebreaks. Denis Lazovic, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov continues to be a level match. It's exciting chess. And we are also very excited to announce at this tournament that Chess.com is partnering with browser maker Opera. We're thrilled about this collaboration. It's something for chess lovers everywhere. It truly puts the game right at your fingertips, no matter where you are, with some incredibly cool features on the new Opera chess-themed browser. So check that out. And we will be checking in with a game 4, the final rapid game action, and the other side of this break.
It doesn't look like much, but neither would a Sicilian defense to the untrained eye. This is a performance enhancer. You don't see it? How about now? Manage your air quality, sharpen your performance, change the game with Air Things.
Spell Chess is coming to Chess.com. Enchant your pieces with one of 2 spells, jump or freeze. Players start with 2 jump spells and 5 freeze spells, which recharge after 5 moves. You may cast your spell whenever you wish before making a regular chess move. Jump is a spell cast to 1 square, wherein if there is a piece on that square, other pieces can jump over the charmed piece. The freeze spell is cast over a 3x3 square area, and the pieces in this area are temporarily frozen in place. Combine your powers of chess and sorcery to defeat your opponent. Come see what Supercell and Chess.com have cooked up in our new variant, Spell Chess. Available now on Chess.com.
September bots are here, and it's time for a monumental clash. This barbarian might not crush you on the board, but he certainly can crush you with the board. Speaking of crushing, this giant is a living siege tower. Usually found in groups, goblins are fond of sharp, pointy objects and other people's pieces. The battle-hardened Valkyrie might give you a game once she's done arm wrestling a golem. This hog rider and his noble steed might give you a headache or two. Skeletons adore her, foes fear her. You'll need to bring your A game if you want to beat this witch. Yes, there probably is a rabbit up his sleeve, or a huge fireball with your name on it. We hear wizards are pretty good at chess. Not just a killing machine, Pekka loves tiny butterflies. But you're probably not a butterfly, so watch out. The Archer Queen thinks highly of herself, and for good reason. She's a skilled tactician, deadly opponent, and your worst nightmare. Play them all on Chess.com.
For years, Chess Kit has had lots of fun online events, but it's finally time for us to go IRL, in real life. Puzzle competitions, a main event, and all sorts of other fun things to do. Announcing
the Chess Kid National Festival.
Come along, you'll meet Fun Master Mike there. I'm going to the Chess Kid Festival. I'm going to the Chess Kid Festival. I'm going to the festival.
Introducing the first ever Chess Kid National Festival. Join us in Charlotte, North Carolina for 4 days of chess festivities, including over-the-board tournaments and opportunities to meet special guests like Gotham Chess, Fun Master Mike, and Chief Chess Officer Danny Wrench. The festival takes place February 16th to 19th, and we can't wait to see you there. Use the command festival in chat to learn more and register today. Subscribers, stay tuned for a special message from Fun Master Mike during the break. And we are being joined by a very special guest. Magnus Carlsen is joining us in the studio for an interview after his 3-game match victory against Hikaru. Magnus, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
And also for the Speed Chess Championship win. And Magnus, my first question to you is that when you won SCC, you said you were happy with the result, but not happy with the scoreline or wanted to assert more of a domination. Did you feel that you were more successful doing that today?
Yeah, but this is a much smaller sample size, so doesn't, you cannot lay the smackdown in the same way, sort of. But with that said, of course, the score today was excellent. It's about as good as you can. It's about as well as you can do, of course.
2.5 out of 3, but that second game, Magnus, at the end, we were surprised by how quickly it ended. Hikaru agreeing for a draw there. Did that surprise you a little bit? Do you think that was premature?
Yeah, the second game was just horrible. I missed so many things there. I liked the way he played it, the opening, enterprising and surprising, but I think I reacted fine, and then at some point he should sort of just reconcile with that the position was more or less equal. I immediately realized that the way he played later was way too risky, but I couldn't find a good solution, and then I just started messing up. But clearly the worst move was Rook B8, because I'd simply missed King F2, and then it felt like I could almost resign, because I don't have any threats anymore, and he'll just consolidate. And yeah, afterwards, I was shocked when he went Queen D2. I mean, of course, it wins my queen, but it gives me significant drawing chances. And after that, I was just trying to hold on. I wouldn't say I was either happy or particularly unhappy to enter the position with queen against 2 bishops. I did feel that it's probably closer to a draw than to a win for him, especially considering that there's a famous game, Polugajevsky against Geller, I think, where Polugajevsky won with 3 against 3 on the king side and symmetrical, and queen against 2 bishops. I assume that the way it is, especially since my bishop can come to d5 and get an anchored square there, I assume that it should be a draw, but yeah, I guess he was just frustrated and didn't want to try. But I think, yeah, it's pretty clear that you're just giving away equity there for no reason.
And Magnus, that's pretty impressive, pulling up a game from 1968 just out of the memory bank there. But I just want to ask about your tweet before the game started, talking about revenge not being served at all. No?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. I better not ask. Moving on, Simon.
Yeah, thanks. And Magnus, I mean, do you consider like Hikaru your main rival now in sort of at least online chess? And I don't know about over the board chess, but online chess at least.
So I think there are, in terms of rivals, there are tiers. And so there's the first tier is like no rivals, and then a little bit after that is Hikaru. So he's definitely the second after no rivals, I would say.
And Magnus, SCC finished on Friday. You started this event on Monday. Did you get some time to celebrate your big SCC win?
No, I haven't really celebrated. You know, I had the tournament today. Also, I've been feeling a little bit under the weather, so I haven't really had time to do that. But yeah, I'm just trying to prepare for it today and more or less get in shape.
All right, well, Magnus, we hope you recover quickly, and we look forward to seeing you back tomorrow in action.
Thank you.
Thank you. Magnus Carlsen winning his match against Hikaru in 3 games. And this means some changes in their post-match stats right here, with a big accuracy in this match, a 90% accuracy by Magnus, 86% for Hikaru. That game too, Magnus was pretty confident that he would be able to hold that position, pulling out that random 1968 memory that you were talking about.
Yeah, for anyone at home who wants to check out that game, Lev Polugajevsky against Efrem Geller from 1968. Magnus has it all up there. It's crazy. He's another level.
I'm telling you, absolutely insane.
That is insane.
It's amazing that you remember the year there as well. That was like, you obviously know the game very well as well.
What can I say? I've studied it all before.
And also the fact that he had no idea about the tweets. That means someone's running his Twitter.
Oh,
nice weather.
All right, well, the action is still on the other matches. Jan Nepomniachtchi has won his battle against Anish Giri. He continues in the winner's bracket. But Maxim Vachier-Lagrave still has a job to complete here. Alireza Firouzja with black has to find his chances. The kind of games, the kind of fights that we've been seeing in this battle so far, those chances will come.
Those chances will come, that's right. And Vachier-Lagrave isn't the type of player who kind of willingly aims towards shutting things down. If he gets the chance to draw, of course, later on, then he'll take it, of course. But yeah, right now, Caro-Kann defense, Alireza, Firouzja, going back to something we discussed earlier. In these really crunch situations, go back to what you know best. Go back to what you love. And he's playing his childhood favourite, the Caro-Kann defence. Where's Ivanka when we need her? But meanwhile, this last move has forced black to think. Alireza Firouzja usually trades off a set of pawns in the centre here. But of course, in a must-win situation, you want to surprise your opponent. And it's not easy to do that in any opening with black. What do you think, Simon? Is this the recipe for success?
I think it's a good idea. I remember Gwaine Jones, one of the strongest players in England, Grandmaster. But I remember he mentioned that when he plays for a win against 1e4, he always plays the Caro-Kann. Don't play the Sicilian. He used to play the Dragon because there's many forced lines which can end in perpetual checks into a draw if White wants to play them. But he loved playing the Caro-Kann because you get a position which is dynamic, which is quite complex. This move, though, is a little bit rare, right? Bring the queen out in this position.
Yeah, I've seen this recommended recently on Twitter, well, on X, I should say. And yeah, I think it was by Nutilis, a famous opening theoretician. And it's just a way of getting a very safe position with White, not taking too much risk. Normally, it goes against what we're taught when we're young of developing the queen too early, but you are gaining time against Black's bishop. You are aiming to kind of get the advantage of the bishop pair. And yeah, interesting that Vachier-Lagrave, he's the one surprising Firouzja at this early stage.
Yes, bishop goes back, and yeah, you mentioned that I was going to say Twitter as well. Can I just say Twitter? Because we all know what I'm talking about. But
sorry, Elon.
Yeah, he's got a great. He's got some great ideas on that account. But this queen coming out, it kind of is quite an aggressive position. And where's MVL going to put his king? I expect he'll go king side. And in the meantime, Alireza just developing his pieces, maybe getting ready to open up the centre at the right time by pushing the pawn in front of the king 2 squares. So it's certainly a very interesting opening position.
These Caro-Kann positions, it's always a big question for White, when to start pushing Harry the H-pawn. I will not be surprised if we see that soon enough on the board. And we will check back if Maxim indeed decides to go with H4. But action is about to begin in the Denis Lazovic-Vachier matchup. It has been 3 draws so far in their game, going into the 4th round. The final rapid game, the score is level. Vachier is missing from his chair. Denis Lazovic ready with the black pieces. What are the odds of this one going into an Armageddon?
Ooh.
Predictions.
I'll say Atakriar Mamedyarov will get this game.
Ooh.
He's got whites, nothing to lose. I think actually Lazovic would be very happy with an Armageddon, so I think Vachier is going to throw everything at his young opponent.
Yeah.
Shack attack for David. Simon?
I'm going to go shack attack as well. I mean, he was warming up in that last game. He got his first piece sacrifice in, and you know, when Shack gets in gear, he's like this, you know, bulldozer of energy. So I'll go Shack. Yeah.
I'm going to go Denis the Menace.
Denis the Menace.
I think we are going to most likely have an Armageddon in this one. I think Denis will hold with the black pieces. He has shown incredible solid technique, not giving away any weaknesses, making sure that Vachier doesn't get his kind of positions. But we're still waiting for Shak to arrive, and the clock is ticking down.
Yeah, the clocks were ticking there. We will update you once Mamedyarov finally does arrive at the board. Maybe doing some last-minute preparations there. Meanwhile, Vachier-Lagrave looks like he's attacking himself. Bishop to c4. This looks like he's kind of just learnt chess. He's going for scholar's mate. Queen on f3, bishop on c4. But of course, there are no threats right now, and black is very solid here. Firouzja creating winning chances. That's the kind of big question. Caro-Kann, rock solid opening. No weaknesses really for black, but winning this game still a long way down the line. I'm expecting knight to f6 here, but maybe he's looking for something a bit more fruity in this must-win on-demand situation.
It's quite a dangerous position if you don't know your theory here, I think, for Alireza, because the white pieces do look quite scary. And Tanya mentioned the H-pawn coming up. And, well, this move, I was like, can he get away with it? Then I'm like, surely not, because the white bishop on those light squares can't be blocked anymore. It looks so risky, this move, but he's got to play for the win. So maybe this is the risk he needed to take.
Yeah, look at that black king in centre. Look at all the pieces undeveloped. But we'll check in to see whether Vachier-Lagrave is able to punish Firouzja. This one, however, starts as a Nimzo Indian. Lazovic has been playing this pretty much his whole career, his young career. He's thrived in this opening, and Vachier playing the queen c2 variation, just developing the white queen last move. That means that actually maybe he's going to play this safe. Not known for its attacking kind of options here. But, OK, white does pin the black knight. And if he takes this knight, it means that Mamedyarov wants to play it safe. Oof.
That's a pity. I mean, you know, he's walking into the hands of Denis here by playing it safe. And, yeah.
I've got to say, guys, my prediction looking good right now.
Yeah, that was upsetting, that was. You know, I was like, come on, Shaq. You can do better than this. You can attack. We want to see you attack. And, I mean, the game's not over, of course, but I'm used to Shaq pushing his G-pawn, pushing his H-pawn in these kind of positions, and it's going to be a more positional game now.
Yeah, very positional game. White temporarily has more space due to the pawn on d4 in the centre, but White is behind in development. So I think those two factors cancel each other out. And right now, Mamedyarov sliding his rook across. He's getting ready for Black to go for the thematic pawn break in the centre. Black will push his pawn to e5 sooner rather than later. And Mamedyarov just getting his pieces ready. I'm expecting first Lazovic to just kind of perfect this, get the ideal scenario. Rook e8, for example, here as Black, and still a well-known position. Just theory should favour the younger player here.
And I think that e5 break, it's super thematic in these positions, but you have to calculate the lines of what happens if White actually responds with his own d central pawn moving forward, hitting that knight, and a potential capture on c7. And the chaos that happens after that, it might just suit Shakhriyar's style of play. The line that you're pointing out, the knight perhaps just moves back to e7. It's a nice square. And you can give up the c7 pawn, which maybe White can capture it. And I say it hesitantly. Looking at the eval bar, it seems to say it's still possible, but things get messy.
Things get really messy, and maybe this is what Mamedyarov is banking on. Maybe I was a bit harsh on his opening choice. I said it was a safe option, but of course, any safe position can explode at the lightest touch. So yeah, this would suddenly get chaotic, and Lazovic is pausing, so maybe just not expecting Mamedyarov to go down this slightly kind of safer approach, at least reputation-wise, a safer approach. Rook to e8 would be a safe move for Black. Rook to d8 also very safe, but e5 is the acid test of what White is trying to do. If we see a bunch of trades on this square, then the game will fizzle out towards equality. But Mamedyarov, of course, will not play it safe.
E5 seems a bit too risky for Denis. I don't want to be rude to the young man, but he likes keeping it safe, and that's got him this far. He's got to the final by his really risk-free and brilliantly mature sort of style. So I think he'll go rook e8 or rook d8. I like having little bets on moves, though. I mean, what do you reckon? Anyone going to go for e5? Have we got an e5?
I'll take you up on that, Simon.
Yeah, okay.
Pawn to e5. I think
for a beer, I reckon. Yeah.
Only a
Say
beer?
quickly. Only a beer.
For a cider.
For a cider.
A nice glass of sparkly champagne.
Okay, that's fine. I'll take whatever I can. He's not going to go e5. He's thinking about it because he's spending a lot of time, and it must be the mood to play.
And it's this whole stylistic thing, right? If Shaq is Black, e5 on the board instantly.
He would have played it 2 minutes ago. You know, if Shaq was Black, e5.
Pre-moved it.
Definitely. I don't even think Shaq will take the pawn. I mean, Shaq loves giving up material, and he loves messy positions, but he's not known to be a pawn grabber, is he? As much as some of the other players. So I don't think he'll want to take that pawn anyway.
And the thing with top players is they all have their styles, of course, but when the position demands a certain type of move, even if it's counterintuitive to them, they at least calculate it. And if Denis doesn't see anything wrong with e5, he might play it. The more he thinks, the more I think you might win the bet, Simon. That's the problem right now.
And that's the thing, right, David? How much time is he going to take to make this decision as well? He's definitely calculating all these lines, but because it's sort of not an intuitive approach for a player like Denis, it means he burns the clock a little more.
Yeah, I think he'll spend maximum another 1 to 2 minutes, and then he'll just play a safe move or he'll go for it. I don't think you can really afford to invest more than what he's doing right now because there's still so much life in the position. It might kind of really burst into action, of course, and you want to leave yourself with enough time to calculate through that chaos, through the wild forest. Oh, Simon.
Okay, it's a beer.
Too good.
It's the good night tonight.
I'll be taking a beer tonight, definitely. So, yep.
If you're in Oslo, you know where to find Simon tonight. He wins what was it? A glass of...
I'll take anything. A beer is good. So, I mean, it can't be a bad mood, this one. It just seems like Denis doesn't want to take too many risks, and he's getting ready to open up the centre of the board, and a sensible move.
Yeah, very sensible. He's just keeping Mamedyarov guessing here, and this can never hurt Black's position, having the rook opposite the white king. If the centre opens up, as we're expecting it to in the next few moves, then this move will seem like genius. Just kind of, just setting up this incoming attack from Black. So Mamedyarov, I was expecting him to reply immediately. He chose this opening, and rook e8, as far as I know, is still a kind of theoretical move. If I remember correctly, White should be retreating. There we go. The queen 1 square, queen c3, still well known. And the kind of typical idea here for white is to try and land the knight on e5 before black breaks out. Dennis cannot delay this decision too much longer. And there we go.
He's got to play it. He's got to play e5 here. And if the position opens up, let's remember that white's king is in the centre of the board and black's king is castled. So it's a little bit risky. I mean, white therefore keeps the position closed, pushes on with a pawn. And the knight, that looks really odd, but you've got to put the knight on the right route. Will he grab the pawn now? I mean, it looks so scary. I would want to get castled here rather than grabbing that pawn. Would you grab it?
Big moment. I would consider grabbing it. If I didn't know any theory here, I would spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes contemplating. If I can't see any punishment for grabbing a pawn, I would play it. But the problem is, if you're unprepared, your knight is going to get hit. Suddenly things are opening up towards the white king. The knight can block the queen's attack on the b2 pawn, but suddenly maybe pawn to e3, throwing a spanner in the works there. Black's knight comes out, hitting the queen as well, gaining a lot of time, a lot of tempi. And I don't know, like you said, stylistically, not his cup of tea. And e3 played by Mamedyarov after a bit of thought. So taking the safe option, but very well founded positionally. Bishop to g4 from Lazovic. It's like roles are reversed. Suddenly black is the one attacking, white is the one reacting. But now bishop to e2, surely going to be played by Mamedyarov, blocking this pin along the diagonal. And the game will take a quieter turn. I'll expect at some point black to try and break out and aim for a kind of symmetrical pawn structure.
Draw.
Whoa.
What?
Do we have a draw?
No.
What? No, they're playing bishop e2, but the clocks are stopped. I think we do have a result.
Whoa.
Bishop e2, and it ends in a draw. We get an Armageddon.
Oh.
Wow, that was unexpected.
Really unexpected, and that's the theme of the day, just premature draw offers. I think it's the player's nerves. Wow, and the chess god Kaiser, will it punish Mamedyarov taking a quick draw with white?
Ooh. And it happened after bishop e2, which means that bishop e2 was played, and it is Shakhriyar who actually offered a draw to Denis Lazovic, who accepted it. Shak saying he wants to take it into the Armageddon, which means we will have some mind games between these two for the bidding Armageddon. But meanwhile, action is still on in this match. These two have been fighting it out till the very end. Alireza needs to win on demand. Let's just remind everyone, Maxim taking that big point in game 3. The lead, and so far everything looks under control, but Maxim does have a long-term weakness. The isolated queen's pawn gives Alireza a target in the position.
Yeah, I don't think he could have asked for more from the opening Alireza here. It's still balanced enough. All the pieces are left on the board, and like you say, Tanya, white's pawn on d4, long-term weakness for sure. And okay, Firouzja brings his rook to the center, nice open file. I think Maxim, he's kind of been playing half with the handbrake on. He doesn't really want to take too much risks. Of course, there's nothing wrong with white's position either, but how to guide this game towards safety? Simon, who would you pick here?
I probably pick being white here, because generally, you know, we've got the isolated pawn, you've got the more active pieces, it's a bit easier to play, but I agree with what you say, that Alireza's also done the right thing. He's got a dynamic, very complicated double-edged position here, and that's what he needs. He doesn't want a symmetrical pawn structure. He wants a structure which has a lot, and all the pieces on the board. So there's loads to play for here, and yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how it turns up. The time is quite a lot in MVL's favour. That could be a factor as well, but yeah, it looks all right. Looks all right for black.
Yeah, how do you find it playing friends, Simon? Because I know these two have a lot of respect for each other, teammates at country, at the international level.
I find it tough. Yeah, I mean, I find it really hard. I mean, I think as you get older, you get, you know, a bit more used to it. But I mean, one thing I always used to do with my friends, you know, you just have to forget about when you're playing the emotions, and you can always buy them a drink afterwards and put everything aside. But originally, I found it really hard because that extra focus, you know. You've got to, you know, you've got to beat them, try to beat them. You can't have quick draws all the time, but you just got to be quite strong to do that.
It's always about the drink afterwards.
Well, it's a nice way. It's a nice way to sort of, you know, if you beat your friend, then it's like, okay, let's go and chill out.
Ooh.
If they beat you, then it's also quite.
This is some unfriendly chess here. Gary, the G pawn up the board.
This is aggressive. I like what MVL's doing, because there's a danger when you only need a draw in the position that you don't take too many risks. And, you know, he's not doing that. He's doing the right thing. He's playing energetically, and this seems like a good move, attacking on the king side.
Yeah, and the chess gods might smile upon MVL. Only need to draw, remember, but playing attacking chess. Let's just go back one move. If it were me, a more kind of passive player here, a move like bishop d2 might have stood out, just trying to bring rooks to the center of the board, trading off, heading towards safety. But that would have left Firouzja feeling ambitious, feeling very optimistic. g4, however, kind of washes all of those thoughts out the window. g4 is a very aggressive move. Firouzja now fighting for survival. The problem is the black bishop doesn't have too many safe squares. If it drops back to g6, I think we would see a trade. And MVL here would continue pushing forward, pawn to g5. Momentum now turning in white's favor, because look at this, the f7 weakness, which is this kind of the softest point in any position, is now attacked twice. The bishop and queen aiming towards it, the knight being kicked out the way. So Firouzja could not go for this. Instead, bishop to e4 played, and after the bishop is captured, I'm expecting him now to take with the rook. If you take with the knight, again, potential disaster lying in your future on f7. I don't see the knockout. I don't see a way to immediately crash through, but this looks very risky. I'm expecting rook takes. And note how the black queen now does cover the key g5 square, so no time for white to push the pawn forward. Suddenly white's king a bit weak. I said that the chess gods would be loving MVL's play, but still, of course, double-edged.
Yeah, very double-edged position. I mean, white's light square bishop, though, is great in all these positions. So always striking across the board here. And, you know, the rook does come in. This also allows the other rook to double up behind it at the same time. And we just have it's a very exciting game.
Wow. And this is the maximum that you can hope for, right? With black in a must-win situation, having Maxim play this kind of chess, go ahead with that g-pawn. You've got the d4 weakness to target, a potential white king that can be weak in the long run. The one thing that Alireza has to watch out for is the clock. He is under 5 minutes. Maxim, a big advantage on the clock. But again, this is going to be a fight. Alireza will have his chances. I think they're already on the board.
Yeah. And MVL here pausing, because I don't think he expected this. Rook takes e4, really nice, strong move there. Rook to d1, defending that weakness you mentioned there, Tanya. And, okay, what could be more natural? Bring the other black rook into the game, invite all those pieces to the party. And
I like that. Rook e8.
Yeah, looks very healthy. Firouzja, I do worry about the pace he's been playing at. Just slightly slow today, maybe affected by that defeat in the previous game. But there we go. On the board, rook e8, all of black's pieces playing now.
Yeah, all coming into the game, and white needs to come up with a plan here as well. If black can sort of maneuver his knight in front of white's isolated pawn, that I think would start to really give black a nice advantage there. So maybe there's a little bit of urgency here. Okay, MVL develops his last piece, blocking the rook. And what side would you take here, guys? Would you rather be white or black in this position? Because
black all day, every day?
Black all day, every day. Okay, interesting. So, yeah, what about
you, David?
Yeah, I think unless there's something concrete for white on this f7 square, it doesn't look like you can break through yet, then I would also take black. White's position, very dynamic, of course, but you do have the long-term weaknesses, and I'm very biased towards those long-term weaknesses. Normally, I prefer the bishop pair, but here I will take the safer king as black, and the kind of fact you can play and against this IQP, the isolated queen's pawn, and bishop d6. I love this move because actually you might be willing to part with the bishop for white's knight. For example, if white just makes a move, you could definitely contemplate taking and establishing a knight on this beautiful square that you mentioned, Simon, and this knight is just going to control the whole board. And suddenly the white king a bit uncomfortable again. So I love what Firouzja is doing. It's cost him a lot of time, but okay, you're taking white. We might have to put another drink on it, double or quits.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that is a good idea that you suggested there. I mean, maybe the white knight can re-centralise. I mean, that's the only thing I'm thinking, and try to force the g-pawn through, but it's heating up really nicely. MVL does have double the time advantage here, so it's you know, he can use that still in this position. But black's doing all the right things. Everything he's doing is unbalancing it more. Only one piece has been exchanged, so it's remaining very complicated, and lots of play left.
Yeah, to me it feels like the next 3 or 4 moves might be critical. Either white finds something kind of active to do, something to scare his opponent with, start kicking back the black rooks, for example, or black just establishes a nice bind, nice control over the position. And Firouzja, from there, that will be the foundations with which he can try and build some winning chances.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, let's call out for the other game, Denis Lazovic against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, when I realized that match is over.
Already over, yeah.
A quick draw, and it reminds me of something that Robert always says, ban the draw offer. Because the position that game ended in, it's quite shocking to see. You know, you've got to play on, and a little disappointing.
Yeah, it was getting quite interesting as well. So why have the draw? But I mean, I can understand why probably Denis wanted the draw, because he's kind of proving over the course of the Champions Tour that he's really good in Armageddon. You know, he loves playing Armageddon. But Shaq's said in the past that the quicker the time limit gets, the less happy he is in general. So I'd have thought, yeah, why not play on if that's the case? You know, you've got the white pieces. You know, just play some chess. Who do you think's favourite for the Armageddon? I mean, I'm going to go with Denis, actually, now. Even though he's the lower-rated player, he's just proven he's so good at Armageddon. So Denis would be my pick.
Tanya, you go first.
Well, I'm just thinking, I think it all comes down to the bid, right? How low can you go to try and get the black pieces where you do have the result odds? It's a 50-50, and I think whoever gets black will have a big advantage as long as they don't go below the 9-minute mark. So I think 9-minute over and black, I think that player wins.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll say Lazovic.
Yeah.
Younger player, faster on the mouse, experienced in multiple Armageddons, as you mentioned, Simon. And also, I think the chess gods do have a word, or they have a bone to pick with Mamedyarov for that decision, offering a draw with white after just 15 moves. But meanwhile, this one, far from a draw, full of life, and your idea now on the board, Simon. Those black knights are coming in. Just, again, good kind of chess advice. Blockade your opponent's isolated pawns with knights. The black knight's going to land on d5.
Yeah, it looks like a good plan here. And what's white can do? I mean, his idea is knight h5. I mean, you can try this, but the more black is consolidating the position, I think the better black's chances are going to get, because you take away the activity of white's pieces, and it just becomes easier for black to play. So, yeah, maybe is knight h5 a move here? I mean, it's the kind of tactic that you have to look at for sure. You've got to try to release your light square bishop towards black's king as quickly as you can. So.
Yeah, I love it, Simon. Really creative move there. Knight takes knight now would be answered by the very strong bishop takes pawn. The king moves, and I think you can maybe take this rook. At the very least, you could recapture this knight, and you've won a pawn in the process. But yeah, knight h5, I guess, due to the pressure on the f6 square, black has to go back and defend. I'm not sure how you do that.
Something on d5.
Something on d5. Either this knight or the other knight on d5. That's all I know. Maybe this knight on d5, and you ask white what this knight is doing, but at least visually it looks quite appealing. Looks like you're kind of threatening something towards the black king. I guess here as well, there is a hit on your bishop, but this bishop can always just slide back, attacking the black queen. Okay, instead he doesn't go for this. I like that one, actually, Simon. Knight h5. He attacks the rook first, and then he goes back. He's offering a draw silently here, Maxim. He's dropped his bishop back to c2. Now he's brought it back to b3. And if the black rook enters e4, which it will not, then he'll be happy to repeat the position. Instead, it's the black knight that lands on the e4 square, hinting maybe at some nasty threats against the white queen. Remember, the white king side really open. And I think this might have just favoured Firouzja slightly, this little kind of transposition of moves. Down on the clock, though, and yeah, that 17th piece might just be a decisive factor, unless he can create something in the next few turns.
Yeah. I mean, it still looks like Alireza's doing all the right things there, and this move kind of seemed like a good idea.
Who's playing for a win right now? h4. He needs only a draw. Maxim. He's up a point in the match. He is making some very gutsy decisions on the board.
Yeah, like you say, Tanya, he's playing as if it's the last game of his life, as if he needs to win at all costs, taking massive strategic and dynamic risks here. The white king is never going to feel entirely safe. Still, of course, a challenge to break through, but I like that decision. Trade off that white knight, land the other black knight in the center, two really strong steeds in the middle of the board there. And there we go. Kind of strong and simple chess from Firouzja. 2 minutes, though, against almost 5. It's going to be a race against the clock if he wants to stay in this match. Bishop takes bishop, surely going to happen now, and black will play knight to d5.
Ambitious play by Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. Maybe we should call him Maximum Vachier-Lagrave. I try. But this one, with this trade on f4, you recapture. Now, as you're pointing out, the knight jumps to d5. White really doesn't want to give up the light squared bishop because it's such a big piece on the board, targeting that tender f7 pawn. I just fear for this kingside play that Maxim has gone for. With g4, h4, it feels like, yes, you're being ambitious, but it could backfire really bad for White.
Yeah, certainly. The pawns, I mean, you weaken your own king by pushing your pawns forwards, and White needs to be very careful here. There's those rooks, the black rooks are positioned perfectly, and at the moment his bishops, they're just not finding any active role. So I would definitely take black now. I mean, I was taking white earlier on, but just with this centralization, black seems to have the more comfortable position. But it is okay for white. If you can get the queens off, make some exchanges, the bishops might well take over. So it's not a bad position for white as yet.
Yeah, and really clever move there, defensive move from Vachier-Lagrave. I love it, rook c2. First, I was thinking, OK, you've got two bishops, preserve the bishop pair, drop your bishop back, but suddenly the black knight would land with devastating effect on d2, just invading white's position. Suddenly the black rooks, as you mentioned there, Simon, coming into the game. This would have been just horrible for white here. Instead, he defends this square, rook c2, and he's giving up the correct bishop. If black takes this one, then suddenly white has counter chances against the black king. White's light squared bishop is the superior piece. The one thing not to do was take the other knight with your light squared bishop, because suddenly black has control over all the light squares for eternity, and also weaknesses on both sides of the board to watch out for. So rook c2, I think, a really nice kind of controlling move. At the right time, he might drop this bishop back, but he's just asking black, your knights are pretty, how do you improve? Not easy to find a natural idea here for Firouzja, and under 1 minute now, getting dramatic on the clock. Last chance saloon, he's got to move faster, he's got to up the pace.
And you saw that. He actually took a quick look at the clock and realizes exactly what you're saying, that he is trying to create his chances. It is an imbalanced position, a bishop pair versus a knight pair in the center, and it looks like he's managed to get that dynamic going. But what's next? How does he keep the position in an imbalance enough to get those moments where he can strike? And he doesn't trade off, keeps as many pieces on the board as possible, jumps in with a knight. And even though the eval bar doesn't approve of this decision, I think from a practical standpoint, given the mat situation, it is the right way to go for black.
It makes a lot of sense, but it is just a one-move threat. If white slides across, actually this improves the white position. Suddenly black's rooks look a bit vulnerable. White's going to double up, stack up on the e-file, and
yeah,
Firouzja shaking his head there.
Yeah, he's not so happy with that move as well. And he's moved back, and I don't think
that's not a good sign.
It's not a good sign. I don't think MVL will go back because he's improved his position, as you say. Why not double up on the open file now and increase some pressure there? It's just the time. I mean, you can't play optimum chess when you're under a minute, no matter who you are, no matter if you are Alireza, one of the best bullet players in the world. So, yeah, I mean, maybe doubling rooks is the way to go. Don't see a problem with that. So, MVL, would he go backwards?
We've seen this happen throughout the match, right? Alireza really low on the clock, and Maxim putting pressure not only with a really imbalanced, dynamic, aggressive position where anything can happen, blunders can happen any moment, but also having those extra couple of moments in critical decision time. And now knight d5 played, he's up by 3 minutes on the clock, and I think the clock will really matter in this one.
Yeah, that's how he decided things, Maxim. He really upped the intensity in the previous game when Firouzja is down on the clock. He does eventually play the d-rook to e1. So much tension between the rooks now. It's kind of like a stare-off. And Firouzja is the first one to blink, dropping back with his knight. Now, all the rooks can leave the board. Firstly, who does that favour? Secondly, white can actually plug the e-file. Bishop to e5 looks very tempting as well. Suddenly, Firouzja, with not much time on his clock, he will not be able to react to any surprise. That fishing expedition he went on with knight to b4 has backfired. Yeah. And suddenly, white is re-establishing some control, taking rooks off the board.
Taking rooks off the board, and even the bishop can jump to g5, really pinning that knight on f6 and targeting a lot on the diagonal. Bishop g5 is an attractive move here. But the rook on e1 hangs right now.
Got to watch out for that
I
one.
almost walked into that.
Yeah, so this first seems like a good move, and one of the things I learned when you're playing against knights, when you have the bishops, is you can use your pawns to restrict those squares. So I'm kind of thinking the pawns on the king side now are quite useful because they can take away a lot of squares to the black knights here. So I like MVL's position. Actually, he's played this really well. The bishops have got open lines, but anything still possible. The time, though, also massively in MVL's favour.
Yeah, and your idea on the board now, Tanya.
Nice move.
But David, what happens if black gets greedy and picks up the d4 pawn? Are we going to find out?
Oh, he has.
Yeah. He has to go all in, but this is not going to work out for Firouzja. Okay, his king side is wrecked. It's ruined. The question is, does white jump in, play queen takes f6? Black's queen is going to take on g4 with a check there. White has some pawns disappearing. Or does white just slow play it? Retreat the white rook. You have great compensation for just the one pawn sacrifice.
I mean, that's a crazy line, right? Queen f6, queen g4, and the king goes to h2. I don't see another check for black there. And you've got this threat against the f7 pawn, as well as the rook sliding on to g5 with a check coming in.
Yeah, actually, the more I look at it, I think you're just completely correct here, Tanya. You're breaking through on either f7 or with rook g5. How does black stop this all? I don't see it, and he goes in. Vachier-Lagrave going in for the kill. Firouzja's got to defend this with just 13 seconds on his clock.
I mean, I was thinking queen g7, but I mean, you can win the piece there at least if you go queen g7 with rook g5, and that should be enough to win the game. Actually, or maybe not. So this does, I thought, win a piece after queen takes queen and h5, but
and then the king moves forward. I think that's the point.
There's rook
or
e5.
rook e5 as well.
Yeah, rook e5, and black's suddenly better. So after queen g7, where's the win? He has played it, so it looks like there should be a win here, but just queen d6.
Nice, just keeping the pressure, no need to rush. And I like the fact he used the f1 square. There might have been some other checks, but a draw was not enough for Firouzja. So now the white king is super safe, and the pressure on the e-file might just be decisive. Queen f8, what a sad move. Look at those black pieces huddled together on the back rank. And now where is the finishing touch? At the very least, you could probably just repeat, go back to f6. But h5, he's moving in for the kill here. Really Vachier-Lagrave, he's going for some nasty checks, and it's going to be a miracle if black can survive this.
Yeah, he's put his king in the corner, but it's really, really looking bad. He can hardly move any of his pieces at this moment in time, so...
Yeah, you can give another check with the white queen. Black will be forced to block. Oof, 10 seconds. Yeah, it's been, I think, just impractical clock handling from Firouzja.
Yeah.
And you could do that, right? Give a check, force black to block the check with the queen, and then come back to the square that you're on and almost force a repetition because the knight on e7 is pinned.
Very professional.
Yeah, very nice way of doing it. I mean, maybe black can try f6, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that could be a good way of doing it. You could play h6 here as well, but he's gone for the check, and he's just grabbing the pawn here. And you can't... Why not? Yeah, you can't take the queen because you'll lose your knight.
You can't take the rook because you lose your rook.
And he's gone for it.
He's gone for it, and the bar does react. There's no way to force a draw yet, and suddenly black's queen is centralized. Queen and knight tend to be a good duo against queen and bishop. Is a miracle going to happen? Do miracles exist? Firouzja gives a check with his queen. Suddenly the clock's balancing out. He can give another check. I think Vachier-Lagrave maybe slightly rushed. He didn't need to force the issue. He had full control. And, okay, the checks will not kind of run out just yet, but a draw not sufficient for Firouzja. Is he going to take this white bishop? Or is he going to go back and give a check? Okay, it's going to be a pure queen endgame. But black maybe going to be a pawn up temporarily. Suddenly, all three results possible.
Yeah, now both players playing on second, so all three results definitely possible. But for Alireza, only one counts. He needs to find a way to win this one. He does. The material is leveled right now. So he gives the check, picks up the knight. You can pick up the b2 pawn, but the h7 pawn is hanging. So actually that check by Maxim was very smart, making sure that the black's king isn't connected to the h7 pawn anymore.
Yeah, very, very smart. It was a pawn sacrifice what he did, but now he's banking on the fact that the black king has no shelter. Ooh, it's a narrow path, though, because if the black king does ever evade the checks, black's extra material should count.
Yeah, I mean, he should definitely win on the queen side here. And I mean, these positions are so hard to work out if you have a perpetual check or not. And he's grabbed the pawn back here, banking on this idea. But this is just complicated. This could go either way with 10 seconds, under 10 seconds each on the clock. It's not straightforward at all.
So imagine MVL's mind, Vachier-Lagrave, inside his mind, he's like, okay, I had it. I was one move away. I was in control. And suddenly the black pawn is running. He's going to have no kind of certainty here that he's still holding. He's going to give some checks, but he's got to hope the checks don't dry up.
And compare the f-pawn with black c-pawn. Black pawn is running much faster, and now the king jumps in to actually assist it. It doesn't matter what the eval bar says. For Maxim, it's not going to be easy to hold this. He's only relying on checks right now. Pushing that pawn, can black also start going ahead with the c-pawn?
The race is incoming.
It is. We can see 4 queens on the board. That'd be nice. A lot of fun. But this has got so much better for Alireza, and he's got just the kind of position he would have dreamed of like 20 moves ago now.
And is Black's king going to find safety on that A1 square? And Black is winning.
Black is just winning.
We're going to see 4 queens.
We're going to see 4 queens, but normally in these positions with 4 queens, it's the person who moves first, and that is going to be Alireza.
I think what's going to be decisive also, Simon, is that Black's king is really close to that A2 pawn. So if all the queens are off the board, Black will actually win the king pawn ending that comes ahead.
Yeah.
4 queens officially on the board.
Oh.
But checkmate's coming. Surely that white king is not going to be able to survive this this kind of barrage of checks.
But only 2 seconds left to find the checkmate here. The king has to step into the middle. And, I mean, how are you supposed to calculate this position? It's absolutely impossible to work it out.
2 seconds, and White can never trade queens.
What was that? Was that a mouse slip or?
It must have been a mouse slip.
I think he wanted to take the A2 pawn.
Wow. I mean, that is incredible. You just got to keep checking. I mean, you can't give your opponent the initiative here, and now White must at least have a draw here because he's just got too many checks.
It's a blunder. He had to come back with the king.
It's a blunder. Now White can checkmate very simply by bringing his queen across to b4, using the 2 white queens together. It's all about those checks, like you say, Simon. Pawn count is irrelevant. And now,
checkmate on the board. He found another way of doing it, and that was an amazing game. Another very exciting encounter there.
What a fight that was by Alireza Firouzja. It was in his hands, but Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, the fighter, he takes that one opportunity that he got, but he knows this was close, and he does react. That was a reaction of relief right there. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave taking the win, and for Alireza Firouzja, it is disappointment. So close.
So close. He did everything right. He survived the worst. He completely turned it around, and 1 or 2 accurate moves away from victory. The clock came back to haunt him. Yeah. And it was here, actually, a really unique, once-in-a-lifetime type of position with 4 queens on the board. And it was all about checks. Black would actually be winning if he had played the move queen to b2 check. He actually used the square for his king, and that backfired. Queen to b2 check. It's not easy to foresee this. You have to calculate a lot in advance. But here, with some very accurate moves, I think queen to e6, you would eventually be winning. The white king would eventually be forced onto the edge of the board, and the 2 black queens together would team up and unite. Instead, we saw a full 360, maybe a mouse slip, meaning to take this pawn. Instead, he played king b2, Firouzja, and then we saw the checkmating pattern. The 2 white queens were the ones to team up in the end, and this king was caught in no man's land on c4. Dynamite, and game over. Vachier-Lagrave progresses.
Yeah, a very exciting game there. I mean, that was going backwards and forwards, and MVL kind of let it slip. Firouzja came back there, and in the end, he just got a little bit greedy. You know, tempo is so important in chess, and you got to keep the checks up when you got them and handle your clock a bit better, I guess.
What an incredible fight that was by Alireza, playing with the black pieces, finding that opportunity to create his chances when Maxim got ambitious with the play. And you've got to give full marks to Alireza for being able to do that. And in the end, just missing it.
Yeah, I mean, if he had a bit more time there, another 30 seconds, then I'm sure he would have found that tricky win that David pointed out.
So difficult.
Yeah.
But I think king a2 was actually a mouse slip. When he did move that king to b2, I think he did mean to pick up that a2 pawn, because we saw him reacting there on the screen, and it could have been very different.
Yeah, king takes a2. If he hadn't mouse slipped, he would have kept the game going. I think White would have been able to trade off 1 set of queens, which was a pity. I enjoyed there being 4 on the board, but the game would have gone on a long time, and I think Firouzja would still have been a favourite. So, again, a slight bit of panic. The mouse skills slightly lacking there. In the end, just close, but not close enough.
But these are the kind of fights that we live for, right? So much entertainment and so much action on the board, and this is where we stand on our scoreline. The action does continue, because we've got one Armageddon coming up, while Magnus Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi wrapped their matches in just 3 games, dominated their matchups. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, that was a roller coaster of a match. And we do have Maxim joining us in the studio for an interview. Maxim, what a crazy match. Congratulations.
Thank you. No, this last game, I mean, I cannot believe myself.
What happened? Take us through, because 4 queens on the board until the very last moment, anything could happen.
No, I mean, at first it looked like nothing could happen. I was doing very well. I played some good moves. And somehow then I blundered this queen c1 check, which was not that difficult to see. And then somehow this queen endgame was a bit tougher to defend than, a position where I was actually much better or even winning and where I just needed to draw. And at the end, I was just ready to resign because there were a few wins for Alireza, but I think he outslept with king b2 or king takes a2. I don't know, but maybe some panic there, but just that everything was winning with these 4 queens for him, of course. And I was already thinking, how could I lose this? But turns out I didn't.
And Maxime, it seemed to be a high-quality match from move 1. Both of you throwing everything at each other. Some crazy games there. But until game 3, everything in the balance. What do you think was the turning point of the whole day?
I mean, definitely game 3 was a huge turning point because I was under some pressure because, Alireza had done his homework and this knight offline, I know it's okay for black, but there are a few accurate moves to do. And then after this bishop takes b5, I went into very deep thought simply. And turns out that then I checked and more or less everything I was considering was okay. But what I did turned out not only to be okay, but to give the impression, I think, to Alireza that he had something very decisive and he spent a lot of time, couldn't find it, and then I think got frustrated and in the end, tables were turned around. And then this game 4, I was keeping control for 95% of the game, and there was this moment, this blunder, after which I'm just very lucky not to go into game 4.
And Maxime, we do have a question from our chat, from the featured chat from Crumble Dabs, and asking how would you calculate an endgame, a crazy endgame like that at the end?
Well, I mean, there was no time to calculate, but, generally just doing the right check. And I thought at some point, he could do check with the other queens and exchange one queen, then exchange the other. And, in general, just exchange both queens and then taking my pawn and promoting. So everything was an option. So, I think Ali went crazy because he really should have converted this one.
And another question from the chat, Maxime, and that is, does having the French football team shirt, does that improve your elo, improve your play?
Well, it proves my nationality in a way, but no, I don't think it does anything. It was just, this was a French match, so I thought I might as well bring the French shirt. And really coming back to this 4 queens endgame, somehow I got 2 of those in recent years, both of which I saved, actually, so it's the 3rd time. But this one I was losing. In the other 2, it was against Ding Liren in 2019, I think, and against Max Sudlu, ironically, in this knight offline that we've seen today, last year.
Maxime, that was a fantastic match to watch. Really entertaining chess by both you and Alireza. And while in this one, experience prevailed, we've got a big Armageddon coming up between Denis Lazovic and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. And before you go, I'd love to get your thoughts on how you expect that one to play out.
Well, I don't even know how much time they get. So, it might depend on that. It might depend on how much time black gets for this game. But it seemed to be a very even match. So, I think anything can happen there.
Anything can happen, and we will find out the bids very soon. Maxime, thank you so much for joining us and for all your insights. All the best for tomorrow.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, everyone.
Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, after a rollercoaster match against Alireza Firouzja, takes the win. 4 queens on the board. We don't get to see that often. And now it is going to be time for the bids to come in really soon. And we will find out who plays with black, who gets the result odds on the other side of this very short break.
Denis Lazovic is an online sensation. The teenager, known as Den Laz, has been taking down experienced grandmasters for many years already. A specialist in blitz chess and rapid chess, Denis Lazovic has now qualified for Division 1 of the Champions Chess Tour, and he did it in style. With his uncompromising, tenacious and resilient style of play, Denis Lazovic is truly unique for such a young player. He's able to positionally outplay his opponents, he's able to outmaneuver them, and with his solid openings, he has a perfect base to emphasize his rapid skills. When given a tactical opportunity, however, Denis Lazovic does pounce. Check out this position from Division 2 of the AIM Chess Rapid, which Lazovic went on to win. Here, Denis Lazovic was white against Parham Maghsoodloo. White has a material advantage, being up a rook for black's bishop, but the finishing touches to this game are still needed. Lazovic here, of course, found the most brutal way to finish the game, the most decisive move, and it was a sacrifice. Rook to h8, giving up the rook on an empty square. A check, of course, this rook simply has to be captured, and this allowed the white queen to zoom in to f8, a square no longer protected by the black king. Again, black has only one legal reply, king to h7, and this allowed the finishing touch. The other rook slides over to the vacated h1 square. That's a check. The black king is simply trapped, and here Parham Maghsoodloo resigned rather than giving up his queen on h6. This would have led to checkmate anyway, and Maghsoodloo won a masterpiece. Queen to h8, checkmate.
And we will have the bids coming in really soon. As Maxim said, it all comes down to who gets the black pieces and what the bids are. How low can you go is the big question. Denis Lazovic, again, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and here they are. So not very low seems to be the answer, and it is Denis Lazovic who wins the bid with 10 minutes, and Shakhriyar Mamedyarov 11 minutes to 20 seconds. Does that imply that he kind of did want the white pieces, David?
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of in the middle there, Mamedyarov. He was in two minds, very happy with white, of course. Otherwise, he would bid lower. But yeah, I think, it's really hard to call who's going to be the favorite now. Denis Lazovic, that's a pretty high bid himself, 10 minutes. And now with black, I think he's going to be glad of the way things worked out.
And let's remind the newer chess fans all the rules of the Armageddon that these players will be playing against. Denis Lazovic wins the bid with a lower bid, gets to choose the color, chooses black, with which he gets the result odds. So he starts with 10 minutes, his bid time, but a draw means that black wins the match. For Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, he starts with the base time, which is 15 minutes, but has to win on demand. And because of that, he decides to switch it up in the Nimzo Indian. Instead of going for the very solid 4 queen c2, he goes for the Simish setup of the Nimzo Indian, which we know is an aggressive one.
Yeah, and a very interesting opening here. I mean, Shak was offering a pawn there in the middle of the board, and black declining that offer. And looks like I didn't know the theory there, David. Were you aware of that little sacrifice? Typical Shak kind of idea. No.
Typical Shak kind of idea. And yeah, as far as I know, it is theory, but very rare type of theory. Crazy stuff early days in this encounter. It's definitely Shakhriyar trying to play aggressive. Note how quickly he's been playing. Only spent 10 seconds on the board, and we're already at move 10. But yeah, it's definitely a case of trying to switch things up, trying to be more direct. And Denis Lazovic takes the bait here. He does grab a pawn, met instantly by castles. This is terrifying. Even if you have 2 hours on your clock, facing one of the world's greatest attacking players, and he's coming at you. He's giving away gammeting pawns and saying, I'm going to go for that black king in the next few moves.
Oof.
Yeah, it looks like he might know his theory, though. I mean, this is the kind of position, because it's so sharp, you would have to put a lot of work into. And obviously, Shak knowing the position as well after moving so quickly there. The bishop just retreating. And you can see White's compensation. He's got open lines for his bishops, open lines for his rook, and his king is castled as well. So it looks like clear compensation here.
Great compensation for the sacrificed material. It is a 2-pawn deficit right now for white, and Denis Lazovic quite quickly reacting by bringing his knight out. And the dilemma is where to castle the black king. That's been a theme of the day, where to put your king for it to feel safe. And queen to e1, a nice sidestep getting out of a pin. White's knight now is free. And if the black king does pluck up the courage to castle kingside, I think there might be tactics against it.
The Greek gift, I'm just thinking about that. What you have in mind, David, if black does go shock castle, is it time? And is it that moment where we might see a sacrifice on h7 and the white knight jumping forward and the white queen coming to the h4 square and checkmate to follow?
I think you've called it, Tanya. Exactly. All of that is going to happen. This is a Greek gift, luring out, kind of tricking the black king out of its safety there. And if the black king drops back, simply checkmate is coming on h7. You can only delay this now. And if the king comes forward, then, of course, it will get checkmated anyway. I guess queen to e4 may be the quickest path. And a block would be met by en passant, and the king will die a painful death. So instead, Denis Lazovic cannot allow this, of course, and he does not allow this. Instead, removing one of those key attackers in that variation, removing the knight, and getting ready to castle queenside, maybe. Vachier just not caring at all, giving 2 pawns up. It's just like that previous game, 2 bishops against 2 knights. And, OK, now it's a 1-pawn deficit, but the black king still has questions to answer. Denis Lazovic, he's using knights as blockaders, hoping that they will shore up the defense. And Simon, do I have to ask you who you favour here?
Yeah, I mean, I always take the attacker, but I do like what Denis has done. He's got his knights blockading the pawn, blockading the middle of the board, and he's got some nice squares to them. He's got c5 square as well. So it's certainly not the end of the world for him by any means. And he's now got his king safe. How does white generate more attacks? Well, he brings his rook. Maybe his rook can swing round. And, you know, obviously a shack position. We talk about shack positions. He's one of the most creative attackers you're ever going to see, and that time advantage, he's got nearly twice the time. So I'd take white, basically. Yeah, a long way to say that, but 100%.
Yeah, you love going for the king, and as you mentioned, it is all about the initiative that Shakhriyar Mamedyarov has for that pawn with the bishop pair. The rook and the queen already in the lift, a potential bishop retreat with the rook coming to the h-line. This most likely surprises me, David. And I see an expression that you're surprised as well.
Yeah, I just don't see the point of white's light squared bishop being on f5. It's not as if you ever want to trade off either of your bishops for the black knights. You need to keep the bishops as a pair in order to attack. But yeah, maybe Vachier is just happy to slow play it. He believes in his long-term compensation here. It's very AlphaZero-esque. Talking of AI, AlphaZero always happy to give up pawns for the 2 bishops for long-term kind of control. This white pawn on e5 means that there will always be attacking chances. And for Denis, the question is, what next? How does black improve his pieces?
The one thing that you'd want to be careful about playing with black in this position is the g pawn to g6.
Yeah.
And it might still be fine, but you weaken so many dark squares in that situation, which, again, long-term becomes a huge problem. g6 is a move, and I see the Valbar doesn't react, so it seems it's fine. But from a human perspective, you never want to play it. Imagine once white's bishop lands on h4 with that rook h3 idea that you said. Bishop h4, bishop f6, and you're talking big trouble for black here.
I totally agree. And maybe this is why Shaq put the bishop on that square. Maybe he's just trying to tempt his younger opponent into making some moves that will weaken his position. But saying that, I think if, you know, maybe after something like rook h3 or something along those lines, g6 is a move you would imagine. You can't play it though, because bishop h4. So Shaq clearly thinking about rook h3. That looks like the route 1 tactic. And when you're calculating these positions, you always calculate route 1 straight away.
Yeah, maybe he was scared of the move knight to g5 here, just kind of counter-attacking and defending, because he's played one of your favourite moves, Simon, but a bit kind of strange in this exact situation, because it looks like the white bishop wanted to use that square, and kingside attack met by a counter on the other flank, b5 from Denis Lazovic, and he's trying to distract white's attention from the black king. Really fascinating stuff here. Blow met by counter blow, and whose pieces will prevail, bishops or knights. I'm a bit surprised that he's opening things up, Denis, considering he has knights versus bishops. Kind of normally that would favour the bishops, but makes sense he's playing on the side that he's stronger right now.
Yeah, he's got to get counterplay. He's got an extra pawn over on that side of the board, so he's trying to open it up on that area of the board. But I am surprised by h4. I mean, I normally like h4, but you can never swing your rook over to that open line now, and that's a real pain. So what does white do now to increase any pressure against black's king? It looks like the white queen is maybe on the wrong side of the board. If you could move the queen and put it over on g4, then it'll be game on again. You know, get the queen nearer to the black king. But can't see anything obvious for Shak here.
Yeah, and this is Armageddon, and the clock is half the battle. What do you think of the time usage of both players so far, as Mamedyarov plays a mysterious move there?
I think it's okay. I mean, Dennis, I mean, you don't get any added time. Dennis has proven time and time again that he's really quick. He can move at the speed of light, so he's got enough time, and he's dealing with all the threats incredibly well. I mean, he's the kind of player who just doesn't get shaken at all. You know, he doesn't feel the pressure. He keeps his calm incredibly well.
But I think even for Shak, he's done a good job keeping that edge on the clock as well. Let's not forget that it is a must-win with the white pieces. So he's created his initiative, that mysterious-looking move that you pointed out. But at some point, it could target the f7 pawn. One can imagine the bishop's out of the way, and then suddenly you've got these threats. I also really like that Shak has actually paused and not made the immediate recapture on c4. He's perhaps thinking about that light squared bishop that we're talking about, moving back to b1, or maybe trading on e6. I was thinking that maybe it was played, but then I realized, David, you made the move bishop b1. The bar reacts. It's probably not a great idea because one of the knights can also jump on to d3 to release some of the pressure. But Shak clearly not thinking about recapturing and restoring material balance, but looking at ways to create attack against black's king here.
Yeah, there are various ways. I like yours as well, Tanya. If this pawn didn't exist, there might be ideas of setting up a battery along this diagonal, forcing weaknesses, kind of inducing a hook on the king side with which to attack. But I think eventually he'll come to the conclusion that your kind of counter idea there, knight to d3, is a bit of a threat. So he did get rid of this pawn, and Dennis instantly reacting, taking advantage of the white queen's absence from the c3 square suddenly by attacking the undefended e-pawn. So can Shakura whip up some kind of threats out of nowhere before black gets greedy and takes this key pawn off the board? It's not going to be easy. He does have this limited window of opportunity. The problem is as well, if you go to defend it with your bishop, for example, then there might be hits on your remaining pieces. Knight to d4, suddenly this square not covered. So you have to be really careful if you're Mamedyarov.
Yeah, definitely.
It really feels like sort of the calm before the storm for white's position. The rook's lined up on the f line, x-raying that f7 pawn. The bishop's on the open diagonal. Black feels the pieces are a bit loose, playing on the clock as well. David, again, I don't think it's a moment that Shak will try and defend the e5 pawn. He's looking for ways to actually create a threat in black's camp here. Simon, what are the attacking ideas that come to your mind?
I mean, the first one, I was wondering if you could play bishop takes h7, but and then rook f7, but that just doesn't work at all because you can just take the rook on f7. I mean, this is the kind of thing you've got to look at. There's no good bishop move. I mean, it's just nonsense, but you've got to try to find the weak points in your opponent's position and just try to open them up. So I'd love to get my queen over, but again, I don't see how that helps. So he is opening up.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it. He's got to get his rooks going, and he's opening up lines for his rooks now. And I mean, you know, this is the kind of position that Shak just loves playing. You know, he loves attacking. He loves having the initiative. So he's got what we said before the match he wanted to get and what he needs to get.
You must be feeling proud right now, Tanya. Your idea, it's on the board.
And David, you called out. You want to get rid of that c4 pawn before you plant your bishop on b1 to control that d3 square. And I also want to point out, this position's getting me pretty excited, that if black was to take that central e5 pawn, I think the bishop on f2 jumps onto g3 with a tempo, hitting that rook, and suddenly those rooks lined up on the f line.
Yeah, suddenly the dust is cleared and white is crashing through on f7. This scared Denis Lazovic so much that he played a passive-looking move. After bishop back to b1, he played rook f8, kind of overprotecting the f7 square. I think very, very wise. And now Mamedyarov does take a timeout to protect his pawn. He wants to somehow get this bishop out of the way, but only at the right moment. Black is a bit stuck, so white will have a few moves to build up. I think queen c3, this last move by Mamedyarov, really clever in terms of the Armageddon format here. He's just not giving black any intuitive, any obvious moves. He's keeping the tension and saying, okay, your clock is ticking. I'm 3.5 minutes up. Good luck, mate. Try and find a move. Not easy for Denis Lazovic. Those black knights kind of hanging together. One of them retreats, very logical. And Mamedyarov, can he continue creating threats?
Yeah, I mean, he's doing everything he can at the moment. He's got that nice time advantage of like 3.5 minutes as well. But so far, Denis has defended kind of perfectly. I don't think I've ever seen like Denis blunder. You know, he rarely blunders. Maybe when he got short time against Alireza in the last edition, but in general, he just plays very well. And I think in order to win this one, you're going to have to try to induce a blunder off Denis somehow. So what does White do here? I mean, you've got to try to get your pieces to the maximum squares. This makes a lot of sense because f7 is not a target anymore. So over defend your pawn. Maybe try to again give yourself opportunity to swing the rook around, and yeah, just keep the pressure up. That's all he can do.
That's all he can do. And the Black Knight's now kind of retreating back to some really awkward squares. The Black Knight has gone back to d8 to protect a loose pawn, the pawn on c6, but also continuing the threats on White's e-pawn. It's really kind of not making a great impression, though, the fact that Black has kind of reduced those glorious knights previously to passive pieces. Can White punish?
Can White punish? And I see our chat is also torn between Denis and Shak in this match. A lot of support coming in for both these players. It truly is a position where anything can happen. Each move from both sides is a high responsibility move. I think for Denis to keep control of the position with the bishop pair that Shak has, the attacking possibility, he has to be really careful and tactically alert. And Shak right now just keeps the pressure on. He keeps everything guarded, defends that e5 pawn, which was threatened by Denis with that last move. And also, let's point out that that bishop from b1 can actually slide over to another diagonal at a good moment. Bishop a2 ideas are always in the air, where you hit the rook and start targeting the f7 pawn from the other side of the board.
Definitely in the air. It actually would have been extremely strong a bit earlier. But, OK, Denis Lazovic, he's given up this pawn on c6. Now, no more material advantage for Black. That was the one thing that was worth suffering for. And now he's kicking away this Black rook, which lands on d2. He's hoping for counterplay, maybe even a sacrifice of the rook for this key bishop. But it does feel like it's turning in White's favour now. If you can somehow evict this rook, Black's only active piece, then White has a huge advantage. I'm expecting a move like queen back to e4, queen to c3, something just to keep control. And, OK, he trades off a set of rooks. My first time I'm surprised in a while by Mamedyarov's move. In Armageddon, you want to keep pieces on the board, especially when you're so active.
And especially when you're playing with White in a must-win situation. He does trade off the rooks. Black can't pick up the a3 pawn. The queen on e7 needs to keep the d7 knight defended. And now we do see a block of the diagonal with the move g6, also creating a luft for the Black king.
Yeah, I wonder if White wants to even exchange queens in this position, just move the queen over and try to get them off and play that ending. I mean, I wouldn't really want to do that. He does that. OK, so he's relying on those two bishops and a rooks. I mean, the two bishops and a rook work so well together later on. But Denis is a solid player, and he knows how to tuck up in a ball and stop his opponents getting at him. So this is tough. I think this is now very tough to win this, actually.
Yeah, it feels like things are really in the balance. Mamedyarov had this dream attacking position, but he's gone against his instincts. And remember, Lazovic is really good in the endgame. Also, the time difference, which started at 5 minutes at the beginning of this game, is now down to under 2 minutes. Denis eating away at that, and position still relatively solid. White's bishop cannot go and grab the pawn on a7 yet without loosening up your position slightly. OK, he's just positioning here. Oof, so tense right now. Bishops versus knights. What do you favour here?
Well, I normally like the bishops as well, but the knights are quite well situated in the middle and they block everything up, so they're not too bad. I mean, I still take the bishops. White's light square bishop is so strong, just striking across the board. And with this last move, Denis is trying to get his knights working even better, but you can now even think about maybe taking that knight. I wouldn't necessarily want to do that, but so close here. And let's keep an eye on the clock as well, because it's 5 minutes 20 for Mamedyarov and 3 minutes 40 for Denis. You don't get any time added on. That's the key thing with Armageddon.
I don't think Shak is going to let go of his bishops very early on. That trade is not going to happen. He needs to keep as many pieces, as much pressure and tension on the board as the clocks run low. Let's remind everyone, there is no increment in the Armageddon, so flagging is encouraged. It's a big part of the battle. And king to g7. So again, just making a slow move here. How can white keep up building that pressure that we're talking about here?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not easy. I see, for example, we have a comment from the chat here saying it does not look good for black right now. But the thing is, I think it looked worse a bit earlier on. It was really hard to find moves. You're facing a kind of blistering attack. Suddenly, you have paths to salvation. If the queens come off, if you can get rid of one of white's bishops, maybe you'll be able to hold a draw there. If you can trade the queens and the rooks off, you're relatively solid. The knights might hold their own there. All sorts of endgames, they're potentially savable for black right now. So, yeah, Mamedyarov as well. It's not his type of position. The time difference is down to under 1 minute. And I don't know about you guys, but I fear for Shakhriyar's mouse skills against the young kind of whippersnapper here, Denis Lazovic.
If it gets, I think it gets to 1 minute each, then Shak's going to be in big trouble because Denis is just the quicker player. So he's got to try and get something big from the position before that happens. But his rook is now maybe swinging across. He has got equal material. Here comes the rook, keeping pressure on black's king side. And I mean, if you were going to pick a side, you'd always pick white here, right? You'd never pick black on the chessboard. But Denis is so resilient for such a young player. And can he get active now with his rook? I mean, could be some counter-attacking chances coming soon.
And mouse skills are a big part of Armageddon. Well, right now we see the queen has retreated and might find its way over to the king's side. Also for Shak, he always has this harry the h-pawn going further up, h5, trying to create weaknesses on the king's side. h5, always a threat that black needs to watch out for. But right now, black has a threat of his own. Knight jumping on. The knight on e6 can't even move because of the f7 pawn.
Yeah, maybe the other knight wants to come to d5 centralized, but suddenly the evaluation bar reacts, and I think we need a helping hand from the engine. Why is it so excited now about white's position? Wow, it says there are various strong moves, but the strongest was bishop to b3. The black rook actually lacking some good squares, but I think the more logical, the more human approach here adopted by Mamedyarov, attacking, hinting at some threats against the black king, but also opening up a square for the white queen to come over. And a blunder because pawn to h6 is a killer blow. The black king now forced onto the back rank. If it had taken that pawn, white's queen would have zoomed into f8 with a devastating check. And now, how to finish? The black king is almost trapped. It's caught in a mating net.
Maybe you got rook f7. I mean, that is... Oh, OK, rook f6 first coming in. And look at the bishops now. The bishops are just flying towards black's king. And black's king is surrounded. The back rank is weak as well. And, yeah, everything is bad for black in this position. It's just that one move, right? That was the problem with defending. You know, you can hold on for so long, but then things crack. Maybe queen f4, the queen coming over now from white. Attacking some of black's pieces.
Oh, that's nice.
Just seems to hold everything together. Even bishop g3. And you know, there's so many tempting moves there.
Simon, queen f4, I love your idea because I think if you go back with the knight to e6, which seems like the way to stop that f7 threat, there's a huge sacrifice which might work with rook e6 and the queen jumping onto f6.
This could be the end. And he's
on the board.
It immediately. Shak is going to be going through.
Is queen f6 game over?
Yeah, there's no way you can stop all the threats there. Queen g7 will end the game.
We saw the head shake from Lazovic. We saw Mamedyarov, his eyes darted off to the side. I think he was checking out his opponent's camera there. And he sits back, he sips his drink. He's breaking through. Checkmate in one threat, and queen g7. Bishop takes e6, secondary threat. As you said, Tanya, it is game over. No way to stem the tide anymore.
But a really important secondary threat because queen f7 actually runs into bishop e6. And that is the winning idea of this exchange sacrifice. And Shak knows it. Denis Lazovic knows it. There's nothing that you can do to fight the checkmate or lose your queen. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov with that bid and also going back in time with that fourth game early draw made it very clear that he was confident of his chances with the white pieces. And we do have a result. Queen f6 and Denis Lazovic resigns. Mamedyarov Shakhriyar, after a stunning Armageddon, takes the match. And there he is, the winner. He made it clear that he was confident of his chances going into the Armageddon, playing for the win, bidding for the white pieces. Denis Lazovic, what a fight he put up.
Yeah, what a fight. And in the end, it was just decided by 1 or 2 moves. Mamedyarov kept the pressure and eventually Lazovic did crack. And it was a difficult position. The clock was ticking. And it was here that Mamedyarov did clinch the win. Black had to play a move such as knight d5, just for example, keeping this knight on e6 because it covers the key f8 square. Watch how this becomes relevant when the knight moved away. Pawn to h6 was the killer blow, hoping for the black king to come forward because then the white queen swoops in and the king will not survive much longer. The king was instead forced back to the back rank, and as we saw, the killer sacrifice, giving up the white rook in order to bring the queen in, and this h-pawn, which advanced a bit earlier, does now play a key role. Queen to g7, checkmate threatened, and bishop takes e6. This king is doomed, and Lazovic resigned.
Really nice combination there at the end to end a game that showed exactly why he's called the shock attack. And this is our scoreline at the end of day 1. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, Magnus Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi continued through in the winners bracket, while Hikaru Nakamura, Alireza Firouzja, Anish Giri and Denis Lazovic will go down to their last strike and will fight it out in the losers bracket. Big matches, big results today. So much action. Simon, what impressed you the most?
I will say Magnus, but I mean, I'm going to have to say Magnus again because he dominated that match, which we assumed could be quite close, and it just looked like he was going to win the whole way through that. Every match had something to give. You had the match between the 2 Frenchmen, and MVL was also phenomenal, calculating so good, and at the end there, Shaq won when he needed to win. So yeah, some great chess today.
Yeah, it felt like everyone who won their match, maybe other than Shaq, whose opponent put up really stern resistance, they deserved it. Magnus, just supreme form. We're used to that from him by now. MVL, I think he might be the dark horse for this event. Such good form recently and against a fearsome opponent like Firouzja. But yeah, commiserations to Denis Lazovic today. I think out of those who lost their match, he was the most impressive by far.
Yeah, absolutely. He really put up a big fight in his match against Shakhriyar, but I'm still thinking about the 4-queen position that we saw in the Maxim matchup. And as you pointed out, David, Maxim has been on fire of late. SCC going through in the semifinals, a close match against Hikaru, and his fantastic performance in the Tata Steel Chess India as well, winning the whole event.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned Nepo as well. I mean, Nepo won so smoothly today. We thought that was going to be a very close match, but he dominated against Anish Giri as well. So it looks like there's a lot of players on good form, which is going to be very exciting. I think we're going to see some very tough matches as things develop. So yeah, exciting.
We should mention Nepomniachtchi and Mamedyarov. They played another tournament earlier today. They've been playing chess all day long. So to win their matches, to do it in style, impressive stuff.
Really impressive stuff, and so much on the line for these players fighting it out for the tournament victory, to have that spot into the Toronto grand final for many of these players. But these two have already booked the ticket. But this was our marquee matchup with Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura. The celebrated rivalry, the storyline continued. And for Hikaru Nakamura, there was no revenge today as Magnus wrapped it up in just 3 games. He did make it look easy today.
He did, just taking his chances when they came. A bit of luck along the way, but you need that at this level.
Yeah, I mean, he just played fantastic chess. I think that second game was key. Hikaru had some chances there and he didn't grasp those opportunities when he got them. But Magnus in great form, Nepo in great form, MVL in great form. Like everyone's in great form, so it's going to be a great tournament.
It is going to be a great tournament, and as you pointed out, Nepomniachtchi taking on Anish Giri, 2 stalwarts of the game. But this was the other matchup that was wrapped up in just 3 games. David, what went wrong for Anish? What does he need to switch up for tomorrow?
For Anish, he got a bit unlucky. In the first game, he was hit by some world-class preparation. Nepomniachtchi kind of up to move 20, clearly still in book, and he just never stood a chance. And after that, already down in the match, he just couldn't fight back. He took risks, and they did backfire in the end.
Yeah, it seemed like Nepo's opening preparation was just on point today. He prepared that first game pretty much all the way to the end, and well, we know how good he is, so he could be a bit of a dark horse, Nepo. You know, he needs to win this tournament to qualify, and he started very strong. So yeah.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of chess action going on. He's playing at the Levitov event, and then he comes and fights it out and beats Anish in just 3 games. For me, I think the matchup of the day was Maxim Vachier-Lagrave against Alireza Firouzja. 4 exciting battles. It started with 2 draws, but the games were absolute fire on the board. In the third one, again a roller coaster. Maxim Vachier-Lagrave takes the lead with the win in that. And the 4th game, Alireza had his big chance, his big moment with the black pieces. But an up and down, topsy-turvy match saw Maxim Vachier-Lagrave take the win with 4 queens on the board. Absolute madness.
Yeah, crazy match there. I mean, you rarely see 3 queens on the board, let alone 4. So that was a really exciting match. And if MVL keeps it up, is another guy who's going to be really tough to beat. So lovely tactical chess today.
Yeah, and I just want to say accuracy levels through the roof. 93% and 90% in that match in such crazy positions. Both players clearly in form. Firouzja is going to be one to watch in the losers bracket.
And there was this moment when Alireza was making move with just 2 seconds on the clock. I think it was just amazing to see him keep his composure in a wild position. And of course, the last match that we had 1 Armageddon, and it was this youngest participant of the Champions Chess Tour this season, 16-year-old Denis Lazovic, taking on Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, who's making his debut in Division 1. While Denis has made it through to Toronto, for Shak, it is all about getting that tournament victory. And he showed some confidence there. Very high accuracy rates there, David. Once again, 96% for both players. But in the Armageddon, it was a shock show.
Yeah, he finally got the type of position he thrives in, Mamedyarov, at the right moment in the crunch game, and he took the victory. But, I mean, 96% accuracy, and you still lose? Poor Denis Lazovic. He must be so frustrated right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy accuracy all the way through. I mean, this is only day 1. They're warming up, so it could be one of the highest accuracy tournaments we've ever seen. So, yeah, going to be, warming up nicely.
Denis versus Shak, 96% accuracy for both these players. How does one even get a win in?
They're pretty good, these players. It's, another level.
That is that 0.1%, right? That was the win, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
That made all the difference, that just little percentage. So, yeah.
So much action, so much drama, so many, shocking decisions today by players. The one that stands out to me, Hikaru in that game too against Magnus Carlsen. But of course, the action does continue as we see. We will have a replay of the 2021 World Championship match tomorrow as Magnus takes on Nepomniachtchi. And we also have a battle between 2 extremely aggressive attackers, Maxim Vachier-Lagrave against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. That is in the winners semifinals. But before that, we'll see Hikaru battle it out against Anish, Giri. And we will see a clash of the younger players with Alireza taking on Denis Lazovic. David, which matchup stands out to you?
Wow, it's like a 3-course meal this day of chess we're going to have tomorrow. I'm going to say Nakamura against Giri because the stakes are high. Nakamura will want to bounce back from that defeat against Magnus. And Anish, Giri, tournament victory is essential for him if he wants to qualify for the finals. I'm excited about that one.
I'm with you there, David, as well. I mean, that match is do or die. I mean, they're in a position where they don't get a second chance. But, of course, we can't forget not Hikaru. Magnus versus Nepo, right? I mean, that's a biggie as well. We have to see what kind of form Nepo's in as well tomorrow. I mean, he's got to play like he did today.
He's got to be in good form tomorrow because we also saw the Speed Chess Championship match where Magnus actually had just annihilated Nepomniachtchi. That was a huge score that he won again. So for Jan, he's got to make sure that he switches things up as he takes on the world #1 tomorrow. It's going to be a big day of chess, and we've got a big announcement as well as we are about to reveal our winner of the puzzle of the day. And it is Sheetal Swaroop. A huge congratulations to Sheetal, who did answer with the correct Rook A3 and also gives us an explanation. Sheetal, you have won a Magnus Carlsen signed Champions Chess Tour t-shirt. Well done there. Congratulations. And we will have more puzzles coming up tomorrow and more chess action coming up tomorrow as well as we go into day 2. The action's just started and it promises to be a lot of fun. We'll see you then. Goodbye. And that's it. We have a result.
Wow, Hikaru resigned?
Was it a draw?
We have a result.
Really? Why?
I am shocked.
Hikaru in huge trouble.
Hikaru Nakamura, with a shake of his head, resigns, and Magnus Carlsen taking the match in just 3 games.
Draw.
Whoa.
What?
Do we have a draw?
And it ends in a draw. We get an Armageddon.
He's checking out his opponent's camera there, and he sits back, he sips his drink, he's breaking through. Checkmate in 1 threat with Queen G7, Bishop takes E6, secondary threat. As you said, Tanya, it is game over.
Thank you.